since the Europeans, through those different Southern poverty law firm, have been, funding or either supporting so-called black leaders to create discord. They're called barraters. And so they set their barraters on us, particularly after they set up that assassination for that liberating angel, Korryn. And so they set their barraters out, right, to create discord and to distort the issue. And so people need to know the real history. As we talked earlier, many of the people do not have primal reference points in geography, fundamental linguistics, etymology, fundamentals, the real history in world history, and particularly in North America under the United States Corporation. And when I talk about primal reference points, the average person is not aware of the 3 or 4 of the United States that are in operation, or what you call covers. They may cover. In other words, to keep the colonial operations going, they kept creating new United States after one would go bankrupt in order to continue to rob our estate. And when people are talking about, birthright theft and European colonial operations, they're usually trained to continue arguments of racism and prejudice without real qualification, meaning that not really being specific of what's going on. So a lot of the primal reference points that the average person is missing, not their leaders and not the politicians. Let's make this very clear. Not the leaders, not politicians, not any of the people that belong to secret societies, and definitively not anyone in the Barristers Association of England or operating at North America, because they are frontline deputy knights for the enforcement of unum sanctum. Now, of course, you're getting into what you call the serious, what you call shadow politics that people know about but won't talk about. Because when you get in that area, that's where you get a lot of assassinations and killings, no different than where you see under the unum sanctum policy, they're killing off holistic doctors, that type of thing. Whereas when Martin Luther King, as an example, being a 33-degree Mason, and when he started talking, not that patronizing type conversations, he started talking about the people being refugees in their own land, things like that, and start talking about the Great Seal. See, in Masonry, when they talk about the mountaintop, they're really talking about the Great Seal. And so when you talk about Great Seal, that's already a threat to the established cabal, because they already know where you're going with that. But they know that the masses don't know these, what you call catchphrases. Cabal is really, it's a legal term that refers to an organized body of men that are actually traitors by conspiracy to overthrow the sovereign. That's what's been in operation. So like, if people are sitting around talking about white supremacy and racism, and you'll see them loosely saying the system. Then if you ask them name the system, they start saying white supremacy. And that's not specific enough. Do you understand what I'm saying? But yet, that is what you usually hear. Nevertheless, scholars know that the masses that they're leading around in these emotional arguments are being diverted, even by them. This is why this information makes them uncomfortable, and a lot of the so-called quote-unquote black leaders start getting, irritated when scholarly people start talking about the history, and particularly Moors, who by rule of operation are commanded to be scholarly and not to deal with emotions, but to deal with facts. Because what happens when you start restoring the reference points that are missing from the people, they can actually start thinking for themselves. And after a while, it doesn't take them too long to see who's who. And logically, the inbred and instituted corruption amongst our own, as well as the Europeans, starts coming out of what you call the gray area. You know how a lot of problems our people have, they get together, they have meetings trying to figure out what to do, and we need to do this and we need to do that, but they never come to any real intelligent conclusion. But they march real good and they pray real good and have vigils and stuff like that and candlelight stuff. But as far as real functional, actionable stuff in what you'll call a process of lawful remedy, you don't see that, do you? But you see a lot of rallies, a lot of complaints, and then more people locked up, more people, even beat up by the commercial mercenaries that are, guys under the police department, etc., that are branch operations from the gangs of New York that made contracts with the United States Corporation Company, not country, company, to destabilize our communities, acting as barriers. That's why people need to know law and history. And then the corporations do what is called barratry. And this is where the theft of the birthright comes in. The 14th Amendment is a political platform that was literally created for barratry operations. Are we clear? And barratry operations is where the deputy knights operating for the popes of Rome under the secret treaty of Verona were create legal documents, not lawful documents, to steal people's estates, to make charges, to do ex parte proceedings where the people really have no due process, appearing to be giving the people due process, but actually targeting certain communities and certain people. And then they can fill up the private jails that are exercising public power that doesn't reside with them because it's actually private. And these types of things, it confuses our people. As an example, you'll see a lot of our people complaining about, the 89, 90%, and sometimes higher rate of Asiatics and Aboriginal people filling the prisons, etc. And they'll talk about racism, but they won't talk about barratry. You see the point? Because they don't know barratries, what's going on. You see what I'm saying to you? Meanwhile, their leaders do. But then most of them get a 501c3 skull and bones kickback to keep that emotional race and color argument going on, because it appears legitimate on the surface, doesn't it? But at the same time, it's a fraud, because the issue is birthright theft. And the issue is these people are held as wards of the state and are not descendable. So they're not going to argue the truth, which is the nom de guerre that have been put on these people, that's these brands, Negro, black, colored, etc. It serves the purpose for the barratry operations, whereas the people are declared incompetent, state of minor, even if they're older, and thus non-descendable. And this is where the corporate states which are actually franchisees of the United States Corporation Company registered in France. It's not a country. It's a private corporation registered in France. Now, let's go back in history a little bit. 1754, Benjamin Franklin set up a corporation to do business, or what you call contract business, for the legitimate United States Republic order that was set up between Muslims and deists. Those deists are known traditionally by the masses who don't know the real history as the founding fathers. I know they're familiar with that term, being Jefferson, Madison, John Adams, Benjamin Franklin, etc. Now, that United States and the United States Corporation Company, it sounds similar, so people who don't know history and don't know the operations of government, when you say the United States, in their mind, they're thinking country. The people who have been controlled under the John D. Rockefeller General Education Board, set up by John D. Rockefeller and Frederick T. Gates, Now, keep in mind that scholars, teachers, and politicians already know that you have absolutely two different entities, and the conscious waters of knowledge have been muddied amongst the masses of the people. Like, say for instance, like, what is it that, say, Ku Klux Klan members know about the United States that the people who they're abusing don't know? They know that there's two at that time. These people, under forced servitude and abuses, think that the United States is a country. And everybody else knew it wasn't. Are we clear? So they automatically have an upper hand, an advantage. Now, let's back up. Benjamin Franklin set up a corporation to deal with what is known the 19 enumerated powers. That's the service contract for the organic operations of the colony states, etc., that were sanctioned under treaty and constitution to do business at Morocco, i.e. North America, the United States of America. Now this is where you have the Al-Moroccan flag, which is the red flag with the 5-pointed green star in the center, and the continental flag, which is the red flag with the white canton in the corner with the cedar tree. That's the continental flag. And then you have the flag of amity and commerce, and that would be what they call the stars and stripes, except that the stripes would be vertical. And then the canton would be white with blue stars. And what they've done later, as you can see, they reversed it. Are we clear? Now, scholars know this, but most people not only don't know this, but are never shown this. And so the people have been deliberately miseducated and don't know they've been miseducated. So most of their concepts of what they think is taking place here is skewed and in many ways incorrect. All right, now let's make reference to some things that people know so that they can kind of put some things together. Many people are aware of when Barack H. Obama went to Hiccuta, which is the proper name for Egypt, and exposed that the American Constitution is derived from Muslim law. And he also went into the Treaty of Tripoli, and he went to Article 11. And he began his dissertation within the middle of Article 11. It's another subject matter, but it'll keep me on point. Now understand, also at that time, Michelle went to the Alhambra, the Moorish palace that fell in 1492. And then he came back and they signed the rights of indigenous people. But keep in mind, in the original organic constitution, due to the fact that the constitution comes from Muslim law, fatwa, members of the Barristers Association of England could not hold office in the United States. Why? Because they were deputy knights for the popes of Rome under the Inquisition to overthrow all republic forms of government. Are we clear? They're the first line of the legal barratry plots. Are we clear? And so this is why original article of Amendment 13 with its 20 sections is not taught to the average people in any of the school systems, yet their leaders know, and scholars know, and industrialists know, and all politicians know. So you can see why it confuses people when the politicians and the reverends and everybody tells them to do one thing, but they keep doing another, and the people can't figure out why. They just think they're telling us to do one thing and they're not doing it themselves, but they don't understand the corruption. They don't know this is a cabal operation. Are we clear? That this is organized platform for their peonage and enslavement that they've been calling slavery. And they don't know part of it is social mind control and social engineering. And so these platforms were necessary for these operations to take place. This is also why anyone that's in a particular position of power or authority, or where people, finance, etc., and industry always belong to secret societies. You know, Masonic orders, Skull and Bones, Knights Templar, Illuminati, etc., Eastern Star. Daughters of ISIS, Daughters of American Revolution, on and on, Kyplos, Ku Klux Klan, White Camellia, Union Guard, Thule Society, on and on and on. It's because they must know the real politics and history in order to administrate these operations, because the masses have been held dumb. And of course, this is why and how so-called belief systems played a role in society. They promote belief systems among the masses, create secularism to keep them battling with each other, while the rulers and the priesthood have the true history, have the real cosmological knowledge, Gnostic knowledge of what is really religion, and the masses get dogma, the masses get fiat, and the masses get color of law. And logically, the people feel the injury, but to their mind, they keep saying words like the government, you know, like a positive principle, you know, our this and our that, and my vote. Their votes don't count, never did. They're held as wards. The Electoral College controls all the major offices to the corporation that's been imposturing as government. And then they're controlled in the background by the College of Cardinals from the Jesuit order. Are we clear? When you're looking at the 3 stars and 2 bars on 18th Street here in Philadelphia at the Parkway, those 3 stars represent the Vatican, the first star. Second star represents London, the District of London. Third star represents the artifice and the artificial construction of Washington District of Columbia after they overthrew and moved the government from Philadelphia to Washington, D.C. and created that venue to complete the cycle of the Trinity operations for the enforcement of the Spanish Inquisition and the secret operations of the secret Treaty of Verona for the overthrow of the Republic. Now let's back up. Abraham Lincoln, being a member of the Bar Association by law, could not hold the office of the president for the country. So they ran him for president under the corporation that's registered in France that Benjamin Franklin had set up as a service corporation. And of course he won that seat, but they muddied the water as if he was the president of the nation when he was actually the president of the corporation doing contract for the nation. Organic, are we clear? Now, Lincoln, upon recognizing that he was being used by the cabal to actually overthrow the Republic, tried to restore the Republic. This is where you get the story about the Greenbacks and Lincoln trying to restore the Republic's Constitution because he recognized they was overthrowing it. And of course, that, aside from him winning that case concerning Charles Chiniquy, and he also dealt with a couple of cases making the distinction between Moors, the bloodline, and the Negro and Black being the same people but having different legal status. So Lincoln had to go. They killed Lincoln, and before, during that time, they modified the Emancipation Proclamation 3 times before it was published. They killed Lincoln. They opened up the Freedmen's Bureau, where the nationality and the birthrights was supposed to be given back to the people of Moorish descent who were branded Negro, Black, and Colored, West Indians, whatever they were calling themselves this week. All of those are called nom de guerre. The Bureau of Refugees, Freedmen, and Abandoned Lands is the official name of what is known as the Freedmen's Bureau. And of course, they would have had to resettle us between the Rockies and the Allegheny Mountains. And by the time that would have taken place, as you understand, we'd had most of our land back. And of course, they was in the process of actually stealing our land. And so they needed a political platform. They closed the Freedmen's Bureau, and then they created the corporation person value, where they, under color of legislation, designated corporation as person with a nationality. So corporations were given artificial nationalities by the Cabal Congress, who you understand now is not really any longer the legitimate Congress for the United States, the Republic. They now are actually secret board of directors for the corporate entity platform. Are we clear? Now, so you're dealing with another United States. So now the legitimate United States was overthrown in 1861 with the Congress adjourning sine die. This is what that act really was, May the 10th of 1861. Now, so 1861, between 1861, assassination of Lincoln, the issue of the Emancipation Proclamation, opening and closing of the Freedmen's Bureau, 1865 to 1868, that's when they created the courts, and then made the monkey, Negro, which is Negro de Viera Arebo, monkey, as a title for Christian property, which is stock citizenship, because it couldn't have human rights, and they needed the descendants or the Aboriginal people to agree to be Negroes. So they paid off the so-called Negro leader guys and preachers to convince these people to agree that they were Negroes and they could be citizens. So they had to create a platform that, so this is another United States. Now, except they were actually being used to back the debt of the corporation that Lincoln had bankrupted. Are we clear? So now you got another United States. And the Negroes, the people of Asiatic Moorish descent, who now agree to be Negroes, are stock citizens when they think they're being deceived and thinking that they're citizens of the legitimate government that was founded by Moors and Christians called the United States Republic at North America. Are we clear? We're making these distinctions. So 1871, February the 2nd, they had completed the political platform on which these operations could take place. And these operations is dealing with what is called the two-hat principle. And this is where they're what you call consciously operating as if the executive and branch of government and the legislative branch of government and the judicial branch of government and the Supreme Court are actually operating the legitimate republic, when in secret they are actually slow walking, creating legislation to rob and drain the economics of the country and the estate. So prior to this, under the Spanish Inquisition, the popes of Rome set up what is called Global World Trust. And this global trust is taking over essentially the ancient role that existed with ancient African culture, where the pharaoh was the supreme ruler. The Pope is actually a substitute pharaoh, actually, and also represents a substitute Christ degree activation of the pineal gland, which is symbolized by the single eye of Horus in African world culture, principally. And so in the World Trust, they take on the responsibility of governing the different provinces and regencies that many of which became what you call contemporary nation states that did not exist prior to that. Are we clear? So a lot of the nation states that people think have what you call ancient history did not exist, and is not true. They're part of the empires that were dissoluted or dissolved under European colonial operations. As a footnote, keep in mind the Berlin Conference of 1884 for those dissolutions too, amongst the Constantinian nations, to feed and support what is called the Constantinian hegemony. And it's really the Inquisition hegemony, right? So with the establishment of this platform, political platform, 1871, these operations could take place. Now, in order to give the appearance of legitimacy to it, because the former United States corporation set up by Benjamin Franklin had been bankrupted, they created another United States. Now, so this comes from the Republic into what you would call a commercial, or what you would call it a feudal law democracy. This is where the government itself operates in a state of anarchy. It's not the people. The government itself is operating in a state of anarchy. Then they converted from that into a commercial jurisdiction. All right? So you got to follow these United States. And each succession of operations, the de facto, that's why you call them de facto Congress, who are now really secretly board of directors or trustees for the foreign United States corporation company, and the masses, and particularly people of African, Asiatic descent who are held as property, think they're dealing with the country. And this is where the fraud comes in. And this is one of the reasons why a lot of Europeans act very arrogant with our people when they abuse them, because they know they have no remedy. Are we clear? Now, what they did with this corporation that was registered in France, they adopted the Constitution for the United States that was set up by Muslims and some of the deists, all right? And they adopted it as bylaws. It is no longer a functioning marker, or what you call limitation of government. It actually becomes a private document. And this is where they cover up what is known as the nobility clause. And the original article of Amendment 13 with its 20 sections. And they create spuriously the 14th and 15th Amendment. This is why these are referred to in law as the 3 dead badges of law. And so the 13th Amendment, as displayed in the Constitution of the United States, which is really corporation bylaws, is not the law of the lands, corporation bylaws, is actually private. And this is where they deny our people due process, because our people who don't understand these things think it's the law of the land and think they have protection, and they can't even use it. And this is where the board of directors or the administrators of the trust on the people will tell a lot of people when they try to use the Constitution as a defense, and they say you can't use that Constitution as a defense, you're not a party to it. What they're talking about is that they know it's actually private. Now, so it's very important to know that the Congress adjourning sine die, May the 10th of 1861, was a coup d'etat. And that the opening and closing of the Freedmen's Bureau was a farce. And that the Act of Congress 1871, they had completed the political platform for personage. Now keep this in mind too. Lincoln was the last lawful president to operate the republic. But at the same time, he was the first president to also wear what you call 2 hats, because he was elected on the platform of that private corporation that Benjamin Franklin had set up in France. So you have to have this consciousness in your mind to understand the politics. Are we clear? And you also have to understand that people that are governing have to know this. That's why they must all be Masons and wear a Moorish fez, while everybody's pretending they don't know our people are Moors. That's common. You know how people keep acting like they don't know these people are Moors, but yet all the secret societies, they wear the Moorish fez. I mean, this is where they can put things in people's face and get away with it, because they know that the people are ignorant and under mind control. And so what you have is the conversion and the slow walking from the republic and from jurisdiction on the land to booty and prize under admiralty and maritime law, and how the Europeans actually brought maritime law onto the land under the guise of legitimate government through the corporate entity that was actually bankrupted by Lincoln, that belonged to Benjamin Franklin. And then when that was bankrupted, they created another United States. In and you got about 4 of them now. And so now what they did, they created another United States. And keep in mind, when Woodrow Wilson met with representatives of the College of Cardinals, pardon me, and representatives from England, the bankers, because you got to keep in mind the Trinity operations, to counter Noble Drew Ali, because Noble Drew Ali had set up an order for the restoration of the estate to the rightful heirs. And this was the beginning of what is known historically as the old Canaanite temple that was founded in Newark, New Jersey by Noble Drew Ali, who they designated prophet. And the Queen of England acknowledged that he was a noble. And counter that, Woodrow Wilson met with representatives from the bankers of England. Keep in mind the Secret Treaty of Verona.
Aldridge, JP
Yeah,
Morgan.
Secret Treaty of Verona. Off on an island right off Georgia called Jekyll Island. And they set up Federal Reserve, which actually, again, is another United States, and a lot of people don't know this. Federal Reserve is another United States company. The masses, being ignorant, don't know that. And they're not to be told that, because it's what they refer to as one of the great Masonic secrets. And the only ones that know that is mostly your more or less high-ranking marching Negro leader guys who are in Masonry. And they get a later, which was set up by Lyndon Baines Johnson, a 501c3 Skull and Bones gift kickback. And this is where they don't have to pay taxes, and then their job is to lie to the public and say it's for Jesus. And the public, not knowing the real history, have always believed them. As soon as they say religion, God, Jesus, Allah, the public gets teary-eyed and give them their finance, and they don't even understand government. And of course they get frustrated because we always get abused. And so they march and pray all over the place. Then they have assigned leaders who lead them in these feudal, truthfully waste of time forays, but it sounds good, feels good. There's no remedy because it's never intended to be a remedy. And of course, when you bring this information out, people get sensitive because they're very protective of their spiritual black leader guys, not knowing that they're COINTELPROPOLIS. So it's quite difficult to tell the people the truth and to bring remedy because they themselves fight the truth while they're asking for the truth. But understand, what I'm telling you is documented. It's not secret. But of course they don't read. They don't read. Knowledge is considered hostile to God when you come into so-called black communities. And so they're trained like rats to always declare that whatever they believe is the truth. And then their beliefs change every couple of years according to whatever their frustration level is. And then of course they get more frustrated because it never works. And they're trained in self-righteousness, so they really don't listen to anything that doesn't come from their clubs. And so it's quite difficult to actually bring them out of the dark because they defend their own enslavement out of ignorance because they don't have reference points. So that's why I'm giving you historical, what you call primal reference points. So a lot of questions that people would have, if they knew this information, they would answer the questions themselves. But again, they would also know, as you can see, as you would start deciphering things, you would recognize that having this information, they could also glean out people amongst themselves that claim to be leading them to liberty, and they would clearly understand that they are really put in there to keep them on a social treadmill. In other words, keep them getting busy, keep them being busy while they're getting raped, and then thinking that they're getting remedy, and then as the generations advance, the children lose more and more reference points, and of course the families get more and more dissolved, and then the children have limited futures to look at because most, and particularly the males, pretty much know that they're targets, and most of them don't think to be living past 25 or 30. And then so, and then the parents in their hypocrisy, keep talking about the belief systems that the Romans gave them and accusing Jesus and Muhammad of bringing them, you know, those types of things. And the BS continues. And so what you have right now is actually a private corporation under the International Monetary Fund, which is another United States. And then when they went bankrupt, they sold it to the UN. And now the UN is a new United States with the other United States shells, these empty shell corporate entities that went bankrupt, and they've been trading the debt. That's what's going on today. Are we clear? Now, when Obama came back and he signed the rights of indigenous people, and you'll notice that the international community, nations up there, commanded that this information be dispensed to the people at all costs, from churches, civic groups, etc. And as you all know, and we don't even have to argue it, it appears that the only ones that's really dispensing this information is people from the Moorish Science Temple of America and other Moorish groups and Moorish institutions, etc., and other registered Moorish institutions like the Order of the Great Seal and the Moorish Institute in Ohio, registered in the Library of Congress, etc., to protect it from the COINTELPRO operatives that have infiltrated the temples, etc. If there's any missing component, or if there's anything that I've talked about that's not clear, bring me back to point, because I jumped around to try to bring a collage of information so that you can understand the politics, and then you can understand why people get very, very sensitive when this information starts to come out, because as this information comes out, it is quite obvious that institutions will collapse. You know, and a lot of so-called appearing credible black leaders will be discovered for the COINTELPRO operatives that they absolutely are, including shills that work for the Southern, what's that?
Let's see.
What's that?
No, Southern, is it Southern Christian?
Christian poverty law firm. And as a matter of fact, we already got some information that a couple of their shills actually, that get kickbacks to create problems, and what they're calling militarily schismata are actually what you call domicile in the Philadelphia area. One of their biggest ones actually domicile in this area, and he's actually well known, and he's actually a COINTELPRO operative. And we had the benefit of a person who delivered that information to us, because a lot of things that have been going on lately, and it was suspected even before, but we've got some kind of firm information about that actually earlier today. And so the people in good time will find out who those persons are, you know, but and because I don't play that game with them, you know, but they're shills and they're COINTELPRO operatives, and one of them claims to be a Grand Sheik in the temple. Now, I won't expose that. I'll let someone else bring that information out, because it's you know, it's actually persons that operate in government that already in the background have already exposed that, because they're under pressure, and different nation states are dumping them U.S. Treasury bonds, and so some people are capitulating and trying to help straighten this stuff up, and some of them are still resisting cleaning this mess up. This is where it comes in with Pope Francis exposing the real history. And this is why, again, why I always recommend to people, and particularly people who are listening now, if you want to know the history that I'm telling you right now in a synopsis form, but you have to do a little research. Read the letter from Pope Francis to President Barack H. Obama, July 4th, 2014, and is posted as civil orders. And if you don't know it by then either there's a real mental block, or the person's just unable to handle reality. However, it is understood that there's other branches of the Kabbalah operations that are resisting. And this is where the negotiations are going on right now with China, Russia, India, Brazil, and loosely for the people who really don't know the history, they cover it up by talking about the reset. What the reset really means is that they're going back to the original organic constitution. That's what it really means. Now, people who don't understand it just thinks it's an issue of there's no money and they're going back on the gold standard. That's part of it, because that was part of what was done with the coup d'etat, was the overthrow of the Republic's constitution and the abrogation of the gold clause, Article 1, Section 10. But also, what they don't know and what they're not talking about is that all the seats of government were dissolved, but the Congress maintained those seats, pretending they were still Congress when they were no longer Congress. They were actually board of directors for the corporation in France. Are we clear? If you understand that, now ask questions. You see?
I want to ask you a question.
Make sure it's loud enough to be recorded.
Going back, you said when the people were asked, how could I ask this? Were you talking about pastors and like church? When
Yeah,
you
there's spy centers.
Yeah.
See, this is how this thing has worked. The very institutions that the people have trusted is the main pull pit for the vampires. This is why, you know, let's look at this honestly. When you look at our people, right, the pressure that we've been under, things that have occurred, and that we've survived much genocide operations, we're, in spite of being miseducated, are really extremely intelligent people. Problem is we lack information. It's not that we're dumb. We lack primal information. Are we clear? Yeah. So the average person thinks, as soon as you say the United States, according to their training, not their knowledge, their training, they're thinking country, legitimate government, regulating and protecting the rights of the people, not knowing that they don't have rights under this order. That is really a private, foreign corporation that's pretending to be the government that's been running this thing under what is called Global World Trust. And it comes under what is called Roman Curia. All the corporate entities. All the corporate entities come under the Roman Curia, and it's headed by the Pope. This is why we've been catching hell. And hell is not a place to go. You know what hell is? Hell is debtor's prison. Whether they're doing it for non-support after, say, they destroy families, then charge the family for not taking care of the family.
Black's Law Dictionary, fourth edition.
Hell is really debtor's prison under the executor's chamber. Now, they tell people that it's a fiery place under the earth. No, it was the prison under the executor's chamber. And it's used right now. Except it's like if they're stealing people's property, it will be chancery court. If they're destroying the family, it would be family court. And none of them are lawful courts. Not one of them. But the people think that it's, you hear people always say, the government. And as soon as they say that, they don't even have jurisdiction because they don't even understand what they're dealing with. Now, keep this in mind. They come from the land jurisdiction and actually bring booty and prize of the sea onto the land. And this is also why they made the vertical bars, and then they put the gold fringe around this admiralty as a war flag. Do you understand? And it's not the national flag. It is the flag of amity and commerce. They breached the treaty, breached the Constitution, and now are feeding on the people. And this is where the barristers of England, being deputy knights for the Pope, achieved their next step of the dissolution of the nobility clause that the masses don't know about. And then they've created these trading venues, tribunals, for the corporations to rob people's estates. Also keep in mind this. In 1913, Woodrow Wilson, as a countermeasure to Noble Drew Ali in relationship to the estate, used the administrators of the acting as board of directors and trustees for that foreign corporation registered in France, and now they registered in Guam and in Puerto Rico too, under the Inquisition Revenue Services, disguised as Internal Revenue Services, and continued the raping of the people. In other words, step by step, with each succeeding United States corporation, that they would drain it, bankrupt it, make another one, drain it, bankrupt it, make another one, drain it, bankrupt it. Meanwhile, they're robbing all the resources. And people of Moorish descent, documented and designated as African Americans, back all the U.S. corporate debt. That's their bondage, not a chain, bonds. Registered 55 Water Street in New York and on the stock market. And the black leader's job is to keep telling them their problem is the color of their skin and racism, because that's what they're paid to. And of course, because they're always saying Jesus and Allah and the Lord, and the people get all teary-eyed and give them their finance. They're COINTELPRO. Hard lesson? True. Because they really know the truth. Now you understand why when Malcolm found out some of these things, they murdered him, because they couldn't buy them off. And when Khalid, a couple of years ago, started telling these people they're Moors, they murdered him too. And when Martin Luther King, being a 33-degree Mason, started talking about the Great Seal, this is the Masonic password. The Masonic password for the Great Seal is these two things: Muhammad's mountain, mountaintop. Anybody in Masonry knows that what he's talking about. That's that seal on the back of that note, because they have our estate in trust. That's why nobody speaks under it, and that's why Illuminati's claiming your seal. That's the pyramid with the Eye of Horus at the top.
I know a few Moors.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry, not Moors, I'm sorry. Masons.
Yes.
Now, I really don't understand it. I'm not, I didn't try to get into it.
Let's keep it simple. Let's keep it simple for starters. Yeah, I'm not cutting you off, but I'm appealing to your intelligence.
Right.
Before we go any further, so that your question will even make more sense. Isn't it interesting that they all have Moorish fezzes? Now continue.
That only because I have family that's Moors.
Yes.
And
and they ain't gonna talk to you either.
Right, and I never heard them say anything about anything.
Because they ain't gonna tell you.
Masonry or
they already got oaths. They're not going to tell you. I'm telling you already.
Right.
You don't even have to tell me. I'm telling you.
Exactly.
How do I know that? Because that's how this thing is run. There's people that look you in your eye and know that you ain't black, and know that you're of Moorish descent. But if they tell you, you might tear up something, wouldn't you? When you find out that you're home, this is what the Wizard of Oz is talking about. In the Wizard of Oz, they're telling you this. In the movie The Matrix, they're telling you this. In the movie True Romance with Anthony Hopkins, they're telling you this. In the movie with Will Smith, Wild Wild West, they're telling you this. In the movie with Martin Lawrence, The Black Knight, they're telling you this. Over and over again. As an example, let's look at Wizard of Oz, right? Wizard of Oz, you've got, see the three? The Lion, Straw Man, Tin Man, Rusty. The Lion, Judah, hair like lamb's wool, skin like burnished brass, lost his courage. Straw Man, doesn't have a brain, that's 14th Amendment. What is the gear that they use for that transmitting utility to go in and out, the Sister QV Trust and the Cetus Trust that they set up, according to which United States, because remember they made a shell, bankrupted it, another shell, bankrupted, and this is going on, and the people don't know that these are private corporations offshore and foreign and not constitutional. And they marching all around with their paid off black leaders talking about liberty. Do you understand? And it seems legitimate, doesn't it? I mean, on the surface, the passion.
It does.
You know, it does.
It does.
However, you can understand why some of them are even mad at us. Because it exposes them. So they don't want this information out. See, because once you have these keys, we don't have to tell you anything else. You can see, notice what we're doing, unplugging you from the matrix. What is the matrix? Matrix means womb. Go look it up in the dictionary. What is the womb? False mother. How do they say it under the patriarchal system of the popes of Rome? Parens patriae. The corporate state is your mother and your daddy. And you have no right of inheritance. They escheat it all. This is how our people never develop what you call any sizable inheritance to pass to their children. No matter how many people in the family is working, no matter how many years they work, no matter how hard they work, they end up with nothing. And if they have any estate, the Inquisition Revenue Services, under the guise of the Internal Revenue Services, automatically goes and takes the estate. They either take it right out or they tax them so heavy that they can't hold it. And then the black leader guys go around and march. Well, you gotta get the black jobs and make sure they treat us right. Then they go pay some Ashkenazi barristers and they raise a bunch of finance. Of course, people never really win. They run that for a few years, rape the people in the, colored organizations. They don't even know that colored means artificial. They think it means African people. I'll read that in the law book in a minute.
How does these so-called black leaders get paid?
It's called 501c3 Skull and Bones Agreement, set up by Lyndon Baines Johnson after they murdered Kennedy for trying to carry out some of these very things that Lincoln was doing, trying to straighten this stuff up, bring the Constitution back in, and show this operation of this cabal. 10 days later, he was killed. I mean, this is ongoing. This is not mystery. The mystery is that our people don't know the modus operandi. I'm giving you landmark information that a child, once they start seeing these component parts, they don't have to be a master in a chess game, but you can't fool them no more. Just like a child, it's sort of like this. By people not really having a background in law and history, they deal with beliefs because they don't have reference points. Right. So whoever says it, the blackest type thing, or with the, they're really racist. And then the next guy goes, oh, they're really racist. Oh, he really said that. He's the leader guy. And this is how they operate. No facts whatsoever. But it sounds good, doesn't it? Nothing comes out of them. They still get killed on the street, and they still pack the jails. Then they raise Negro money to fight race problems. They never talk about Constitution or human rights. And it's really asinine. However, when people are operating on the mentality of boys and girls, you can get away with that because they don't have reference points, even though they're adults. Most of our people don't even know that the legal tag minority is a social condition. They're told by their leaders that it's African numbers. It's a numerical quality of Africans in America. It's a legal status. But of course they don't read. And of course this is why we have law books for people, because we already know they're COINTELPRO-operatives amongst us. Oh no, they're making that up. That's that Moorish stuff, So we go to the law book and say, don't argue with me, argue with the law book. Well, we ain't into that. That's the white man's book. They start that kind of stuff. Because remember, they're not dealing with knowledge. They're dealing with belief systems that are for mind control. You know, they come up with this stuff, well, according to my beliefs, 4 and 4 is really 7.5. That's according to interpretation of the spirituality of the Ebonics, of the way you look at it. Where a knowledge person say, no, it's not Ebonics. Stop trying to miseducate these children. It's because you're avoiding teaching them etymology. Within etymology, you can pull this up, which is deliberately held from our children. This is why you see the Europeans say, don't worry about them little pickaninnies. They will never compete because they can't read. And the ones who can won't. This is where they get the training to make our people think that when you get into knowledge, you're against God. You start dealing with facts, you know, you don't need to deal with that, you just believe. And this is the training in our, and then they can't compete, then they want to blame the devil. This is the devil's a scapegoat.
I was just about to say that.
Only in our community.
You took the word, I was just about to say it.
Only in our community,
Wow.
the devil's a scapegoat. But they don't know that's mind control training because they think the devil's real. But then if you ask them, do you believe in the devil? No, I don't believe in the devil, I believe in God. Why are you always talking about the devil then? I mean, see the contradiction? They say, I don't even know God. Then they turn around and say, devil's the God of this earth. But which God are you talking? See the confusion? So you can understand why the children messed up. And then the children, of course, they get smacked around the head talking about they got a devil in them. And they start doing stuff to them. They too. And of course, if you question that, now you're atheist or whatever, they start tagging you and you don't know the Lord. And we're in deep trouble. Meanwhile, our families are falling apart. The youth are dying younger and younger. The jails are packed with us. And we hypocritically run around talking about salvation. And you start talking this fact and they start telling us that Moorish stuff, they're making up that Moorish stuff causing trouble for telling the truth. And then they always talk about, how come nobody tells us the truth? Then when they do, they run.
Because they don't want to believe it.
It's not, isn't that it? See? They don't want to believe it.
They're all about beliefs.
When it really means,
Yeah, right.
they don't want to know.
There it is.
Because it threatens their beliefs. You see where beliefs and knowledge clash? As an example, and we went through this before. As an example. This is West, now it's a decent dictionary, New 20th Century, unabridged. And you'll understand why they always encourage our people to, you know, get rid of grandma's books, you know, these hardcovers like this, and they get little paperbacks and stuff like that and call themselves getting educated and stuff like that, right? Now this is the basic, now myself and Nathaniel, we talk about this all the time, but we decided to do this, you know, to counter the COINTELPRO operations that's been stepped up by the Southern, what's they call that?
Southern Poverty Legal Center,
Yeah.
SPLC.
Yes, with they have a couple of operatives that operate in Philadelphia that have been jumping on us and misrepresenting and also criticizing Korryn, that who's been martyred, been assassinated because she was suing policemen in Baltimore. And you know, when you sue, when somebody knows the law and they go after them, what occurs is that by law, all corporate entities and operatives must have what is known as a surety bond and a charter, both of which they don't have. So they've been harassing her and they try to murder her and her son because he could talk. You know, and people who don't know what's really going on and know the real history, you know, start making a whole bunch of disparaging statements following the shills that that Christian leadership conference have here in Philadelphia. You know, who don't know, well, some know that they're COINTELPRO operatives, but most people think that they're black leader guys. But they're actually COINTELPRO operatives. And this is why it's important for people to really know the real operations here so they don't get caught up in emotions. Our people really need to be educated. Now I'm going to go and give you a basic, what is known as third grade etymon degree. Now etymon applies to in language, any word. And this is how all scholars trace other scholars. Or like say if you're doing research, if you're dealing with legal documents, contracts, mortgages, wills, documents that may be written at any particular time. Like say, an instrument that may be written in the early 1900s will not have certain connotative language that exists now that would actually not be valid at the period of time. So everything must be put in context of because culture is in the language. Everything must be placed within its time for you to have a consciousness of it. This is why they have etymology dictionaries. They deny our children this under the John D. Rockefeller General Education Board, and so they can't compete because they can't read and they don't know it's missing. And then the black leaders won't show it to them, see, because it counters their beliefs. See, they promote beliefs and then they get Jesus' half, and then they teach the children actually think that Jesus has a bank account at Chase Manhattan and that the leader guy is collecting Jesus' half in God's house. You know, he's taking Bertha to the Bahamas with Jesus' half.
Ties.
Tithe is Roman tax. Look it up. 10% Roman tax. The same Romans that murder all the prophets, that's 10% Roman tax. It ain't got nothing to do with no Jesus, God, Allah, Moses, and nobody else. Pope Sylvester II set that up. All scholars know that. So do them reverends.
They stopped teaching grammar and language arts in elementary schools and made it all one subject to kind of start to wean out the fact that they're no longer teaching grammar and how to break down sentences and etymology to these kids at all.
Yes, and then look at, and this is one of the reasons why, Nathaniel, like I wanted to plug in the computer, because I wanted to read the philosophy page of the General Education Board. You know, like particularly in Philadelphia, in this area. You know and I know that they've closed a lot of schools, but they're building all these buildings, right? I mean, you can't even, if they can find a hole in Philadelphia, the day you go to sleep, you wake up tomorrow, you see these cranes all over the place. But they're broke, right? But and all these schools, right? But anyway, the General Education Board, their commitment is to keep the people just like they are, to make them docile. All right, now, parents are complaining about their children being miseducated, but the parents themselves won't even read the philosophy of the General Education Board. And then they'll start Negro organizations marching, talking about self-esteem for the children. And we want to tell them and have meetings. How many meetings they've had in Philadelphia alone to discuss the miseducation of the children, about whether they're going to get some good, better books or more books, or what they're going to do with the teachers to get better education for the children. And they themselves never even read the philosophy of the General Education Board. It's not only hypocritical, it's incompetent, and it's documented they don't intend to educate these children, and that they're deliberately making them docile.
They're babysitters.
Yes, they're babysitting them and they're molding them for prison and death.
Yes.
From the beginning. This is not, you know what makes it so ugly? It's documented, it's not a secret. And you got all these adults that always claiming special personal relationship with Jesus and won't even read the document on the General Education Board, and they keep delivering their children to these people who are destroying their children.
They don't understand that there's no separation between religion and state, so that they have...
No, not religion and state, church and state. Now this is back to right on the Parkway, 18th Street. There's three numbers that make 18. What are they? Three numbers that add together make 18. What are they?
Six.
We having problems.
Six.
I hope this ain't
Six.
Right. So, yeah.
all right, right there on 18th Street. There's three stars. We just went over it earlier. Vatican, District of London. What else? Washington, District of Columbia. And they're all what? States. Sovereign unto themselves, working together to enforce the Spanish Inquisition. Who was the Inquisition against? The Moors. Who are these people who are Moors? They think that human beings are crayons. Who told them that? They're black leaders who know Jesusness. Do you understand the trouble that we're in? And then they defend it when it's provably false. Not belief, provably false. Back to point, etymon degree, right? Let's deal with this. Let's keep this simple. We went over this before, didn't we, Matheno? Let's just third grade stuff. How many parts of speech?
8.
8 parts of speech. There we go. Third grade grammatication. First thing you do when you look up a word in the dictionary, this is the rule, universal, grammatication, orthology. Look at the word and you immediately do what? Categorize it before you go into the linear entries. What is that called? Part of speech, isn't it?
Yes.
So if you go in the dictionary, as an example, black. Come on over here just a minute, brother, if you don't mind. Can you hold this camera for him so you can continue? Come over here. Now pretend you don't know this. You just know one.
Okay.
You know, we're just talking.
Right.
Now imagine you're an adult. Imagine your children or your children's children or any child that's sitting here right now. Just use your imagination. Now, in their mind, they're educated. And most adults too, right? All right, so let's look up black. And I'm going to also show you that most people don't even know how to use a dictionary. Less more know how to read. I'm going to show you why and how. So here's black, right?
Right.
Then you go to its matrix. What is its matrix?
Me.
What's that? What's the matrix?
Oh, A, I'm sorry.
What's that? It's an adjective. See, all right, now, hold on, let's keep it. Let's keep it.
Right.
All right, so it's an adjective.
Right.
This is before we even get down here. We're not even going into the linear adjective, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then you see these brackets here? That's called the etymology. That's called this. That's called this. See this?
Right.
The etymology. So, third grade grammar. First thing, part per speech, part, right?
Right.
So it's an adjective. So it's an adjective, a person, place, thing, or idea.
No, it's describing.
All right, so it's a modifier, isn't it?
Right.
So now you know if it's given to a human being, it's pejorative, or it's an insult or nom de guerre. Automatically you know that in scholarship. Remember this third grade grammar. So now a scholar automatically knows that's not an identity. So if it's not an identity and it describes and it's calling these people black, is this black?
Looks brown and big.
No, not looks like. See, that's not, adjectives is not necessary.
That's true. That's true.
What is it?
It's not black.
It's dark olive.
It's not black.
Oh, thank you.
It's not black.
Hold on now, we ain't finished. So now you're going to the etymology. What's the first thing is right there?
Me.
What is me?
M-E.
Huh?
Middle English.
All right, that's Middle English. So now let's go to Middle English. I'm going to show you how simple this is. And what I'm showing you is why they talk about our people can't read.
Right.
It's why we're going through this lesson.
That's good stuff.
Keeping it simple, isn't it? And it can't be denied, can it? Here you go, Middle English. So now, you see Middle English? And what does it say here? 1125 and about 1475. So you're dealing with roughly 1100 to close to 1500, right? So now you put the math on it. Now the scholar knows that that word doesn't go back in linguistics beyond 1100, essentially 1125. So now when a scholar says to your children, the ancient black gods of Egypt, a scholar already knows that he's lying. But a child who can't read accepts that, don't they? Because they can't damn count. So you understand why they keep saying black people can't read? Because they've been trained like rats and don't know it. Then they're arrogant because they keep on calling their ignorance spirituality. Then they wonder why the civilized world keep rejecting them. Now they're racist. Racist to human species. See how we've been played?
They say black people can't read because if black people could read,
Because they can't read.
They would know that they weren't black.
Do you understand?
I did it.
Now this is before you even get into the linear entry.
Right.
Now I'm gonna get past that. Now go right down to here. Now in third grade, still for third grade, you put two or more words together. What do you call it?
Conjunction.
Yeah, conjunction.
See how you're no conjunction is a part of speech. Now I want you to consider if you don't know what chances your children have.
Right.
Now consider this across the board. Family, friends, people we grew up with that are intelligent. And it never dawns on them that they can't read. Because they can pronounce words, it never dawns on them they can't read. I'm showing you why that's it. And it's a valid statement.
Valid. Definitely.
Now, look at this compound word. What's that say?
Blackamoor.
Say it loud.
Blackamoor.
Is it one word or is it two or more words put together?
It's multiple words put together.
What matrix or part of speech?
Now.
So now, person, place, thing, or idea. It's not an adjective, is it?
Nope.
So now, but yet it's a compound word, so it's clearly one more word put together, isn't it?
Right.
So now, that's an adjective and a noun. So what's it say right here? Read it out loud.
A Negro, especially an African Negro.
So these people who think that Negroes are what?
Especially an African.
Yes. So who are they?
Any dark
They're
skinned
real.
person.
So that's who they are.
Moors.
What's that got to do with how they feel? What's that got to do with belief? What's that got to do with religion? That's their bloodline in an ordinary dictionary. They don't even know who the hell they are. They're going to tell you about Jesus, God, Allah, Moses, Muhammad, Salat, prayer, mystery systems, Nibiru, 13th planet, the 5th dimension, and don't even know their damn bloodline. See why nobody respects us? That's an Edamon degree. Third grade grammar.
I need to get that book.
Do you understand what I'm saying to you?
A little off.
So now,
Thanks.
you understand the job of the so-called black leaders keeping the paradigm of this black thing going on and what the payoff's all about? Because it makes the people non-descendable. But they don't know about descendability because they don't know they have an estate. Do you see the whole point? So this whole paradigm of this black thing is to keep us busy arguing stupid arguments. And we're declared incompetent. But we do it with passion, don't we?
Most of these women having babies right now don't know the difference between a birth certificate and a live record of birth.
All right, birth certificate is the bank bond. Now, keep in mind with the United States corporations that we were talking about earlier. Now, you wasn't here earlier because when we were talking and we were going through the different United States. Now, coming up from Woodrow Wilson, because remember these are step-by-steps. Then Franklin Delano Roosevelt, June the 5th, 1933, 192nd Congress, 73rd, no, House Joint Resolution 192, 73rd Congress, June the 5th, 1933. This is when they did the fake bank holiday. And they what? Was stealing our gold. That's what they've been here for anyway. You see this whole step-by-step process? Then what they did with the new United States again, because they bankrupted the other one, you see how they keep on stepping in? And now there's another United States, but it's a company. It's not the government, which were overthrown 1861. You see, you got to keep your head clear. So what they did, they pledged all of the birth certificates as bank bonds. Are we clear? This is where people who are finding this out, or you see them running around trying to authenticate the birth certificates and all that kind of stuff, and trying to get control of that transmitting utility. Ask them about the World Global Trust and give you the history that I just gave you, and most of them can't. Do you understand what I'm saying? They know that they don't have lawful money, but they don't know their own daggone history. And in law, they would still be declared incompetent. And it's, you know, it's sort of like, Our people have been trained so much to be offended by knowledge that when somebody's giving them fact, they actually start attacking people with knowledge as if they're doing something to them. Because it makes their black leaders look like what they really are. That's incompetent. And not honest either. And that's why as soon as you get into this knowledge, they start talking about, well, all I need is the Lordness. All I need is Jesus, just pray on it. And all that kind of stuff to divert the argument. And then they start saying, oh, yeah, I don't need all that knowledge stuff. Yeah, all that's good, but we just going to pray on it. Now, people who don't have knowledge follow after that kind of stuff, not knowing that that person's an operative. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? Because they don't have reference points, so they can't judge. They lean to their emotions because they have no real reference points. I gave you reference points. Do you understand what I'm saying? But I didn't so much give it to you honestly. I let you give it to yourself. I just pointed it out to you to make you pay attention. And the little chuckles that you exhibited was your own recognition of basic things that, damn,
Right.
this is simple, and I didn't know it. I mean, that's in your own mind.
Exactly.
And that's for anyone, if they're not too proud to recognize you can get taught. But also, you've been played. Accept it and start learning. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? But the people don't know that it creates a legal status that they haven't been made aware of. It's not just informational missing components. It creates a legal status that they're not being told. Do you understand what I'm saying? And this is where they can legally, not lawfully, but legally abuse our people, and there's no remedy. And because now in law they're what is known as civil liter mortuus, or dead in the eyes of the law. Now the opposite of that, what they're marching around, is called full life. Them black leaders don't tell them that, do they?
No.
Do you understand? You were going to ask a question, cuz?
Yes. So when they create these certificates and bonds in this children's name, it's to say that this person or this corporation is going to work off our debt?
No, this is what it is. This is what it is. Let's back up and be very, very, very clear. And let's try to keep it simple. The United States Corporation Company that Lincoln bankrupted was a corporation that was set up in 1754 by Benjamin Franklin. That name of that corporation was the United States. They used that platform to undermine the legitimate United States Republic that was set up between Muslims and deists that you call the founding fathers. This is why they won't teach people that George Washington was the 9th president. They'll tell people he was the 1st president, because they don't want to go into the Treaty of Peace and Friendship that Obama talked about of 1790 and also 1784, 1785, and the founding of this government. That's why Obama sent the signal that the United States Constitution comes from Muslim law. He's telling the real history. But he knows our people don't have reference points. But he also knows our people are really passionately tied to this black thing. And they will attack him for saying that he ain't black, because they want him to be black too.
Right.
He's Kenyan. He's got a nationality. He honors his mothers and his fathers. A black man can't be president because he's property. But they don't know that. They think it's an identity.
3/5 the person.
Do you understand what I'm saying? So he's doing the best he can to tell them without them throwing rocks at him. He ain't traitor, he ain't never did nothing for a black man. He's trying to get them to stop being black, which is a dead status. But they don't know it because they only deal with beliefs. Do you understand? That's why do your phone please and pull up.
You was watching a letter.
Oh, yes.
I have the Forgotten Scrolls also.
Yes. We say, cuz?
I have the Forgotten Scrolls also.
All right. Now, and this is George Washington in his Masonic garb. Right? And then you can see here, now keep in mind here, this is a letter from George Washington to Muhammad ibn Abdullah, Sultan of Morocco. See, nobody, now you understand what Obama was talking about? City of New York, December the 1st, 1789. So he was in office for about what? Since April the 30th of that same year. So how long was he president? Only about 7 months. And this is his letter to who? This is his letter to the Sultan of Morocco. Great and magnanimous friend, since the date of the letter which the late Congress, by their president, addressed your Imperial Majesty. So according to George Washington's own letter, is he the first president? How come they don't read this to the children in school? And how come the black, so-called black leaders stay away from this information? Because it upsets the black paradigm that they've been promoting and getting paid for, that appears to be legitimate. And then they talk about they don't know that this land's Morocco and we ain't Moors, we black. That's why they stay away from this. Now I'm going to read it all the way through and then ask any questions. Since the date of the letter which the late Congress, by their president, addressed your Imperial Majesty, the United States of America have thought proper to change their government and institute a new one agreeable to the Constitution, of which I have the honor herewith to enclose a copy. The time necessarily employed in the arduous task and the disarrangements occasioned by so great though peaceable a revolution will apologize and account for your Majesty's not having received those regularly advised marks of attention from the United States, which the friendship and magnanimity of your conduct toward them afforded reason to expect. The United States, having unanimously appointed me to supreme executive authority in this nation, your Majesty's letter of August the 17th, 1788, which by reason of the dissolution of the late government remained unanswered and has been delivered to me. I have also received the letters which your Imperial Majesty has been so kind as to write in favor of the United States to the Bashaws of Tunis and Tripoli, and I present to you the sincere acknowledgments and thanks of the United States for this important mark of your friendship for them. We greatly regret the hostile disposition of those regencies toward this nation who have never injured them is not to be removed on terms of our power to comply with. Within our territories there are no mines whether of gold or silver, and this young nation having just recovering from the waste and dissolution of a long war have not as yet had time to acquire riches by agriculture and commerce, but our soil is bountiful and our people industrious, and we have reason to flatter ourselves that we shall gradually become useful to our friends. The encouragement with which your Majesty has been pleased generously to give to our commerce with your dominions, the punctuality with which you have caused a treaty with us to be observed, and the just and generous measures taken in the case of Captain Proctor make a deep impression on the United States and confirm their respect for and attachment to your Imperial Majesty. It gives me great pleasure to have the opportunity of assuring your Majesty that while I remain at the head of this nation, I shall not cease to promote every measure that may conduce to the friendship and harmony which so happily subsists between your empire and them, and shall esteem myself happy in every occasion of convincing your Majesty of the high sense which in common with the whole nation I entertain the magnanimity, wisdom, and benevolence of your Majesty. May the Almighty bless your Imperial Majesty, our great and magnanimous friend, with his constant guidance and protection, signed George Washington. So as you can see, the United States is an appendage of the Moorish Empire. How come they ain't telling you that? Now, scholars recognize it. Masons know this. This is why one of the first lessons they give in all secret societies is Ruth the Moabitess. Yahshua's great-great-grandmother, the one they call Jesus. And the short form, what, Moabite, is what? Moroccan. Short for that is more. Now I'm going to read here, and here you go with the preamble. So here's the preamble. To all persons to whom these presents shall come or be made known, whereas the United States of America in Congress assembled by their commission, bearing date the 12th day of May 1784, thought proper to constitute John Adams, Benjamin Franklin, and Thomas Jefferson their ministers plenipotentiary, giving to them, or majority of them, full power to confer, treat, and negotiate with the ambassador, minister, or commissioner of His Majesty the Emperor of Morocco, concerning a treaty of amity and commerce, to make and receive propositions for such treaty, and to conclude and sign the same, transmitting to the United States in Congress assembled for their final ratification. And by one other commission bearing the date the 11th day of March 1785, did further empower the said ministers plenipotentiary, or majority of them, by writing under the hands and seals, to appoint such agent in the said business as they might think proper, with authority under the directions and instruction of the ministers to commence and prosecute the said negotiations and conferences for the said treaty, provided that the said treaty shall be signed by ministers. And whereas we, the said John Adams and Thomas Jefferson, two of the said ministers plenipotentiary, the said Benjamin Franklin being absent, by writing under the hand and seal of the said John Adams at London, October the 5th, 1785, and of the said Thomas Jefferson at Paris, October the 11th of the same year, did appoint Thomas Barclay agent in the business aforesaid, giving him the powers therein, which by the said second commission we were authorized to give, and the said Thomas Barclay, in pursuance thereof, both arranged articles for a treaty of amity and commerce between the United States of America and His Majesty the Emperor of Morocco, and sealed with his royal seal, being transmitted into the language of the said United States of America, together with the attestations thereto annexed, are in the following words, to wit: in the name of Almighty God, this is a treaty of peace and friendship established between us and the United States of America, which is confirmed and which we have ordered to be written in the book and sealed with our royal seal at our court of Morocco in the 25th day of the blessed month of Shaban in the year 1200, trusting in God it will remain permanent. Morocco, treaty of peace and friendship with the Moroccan flag. That's the real American flag right there. Now, and as you can see, even under the preamble, that they were ministers plenipotentiary under the authority of the Sultan. You know, and of course, we know, but you know, and I know, that the so-called black leaders are paid to try to minimize this information, or to act like Noble Drew Ali made this stuff up, or that it's a belief. This is the real history. This is your estate. That's what's in trust. That's what the global world trust is about. It is the trust regulating the spoils of war. That's why all what used to be allodial titles here are converted into mortgages and liens since 1913. Look up the congressional records. And the people are listed as tenants. So again, now, so
she said, what debt, you know, she was talking about that we have debt, so, you know.
We don't have debt. What they've been doing is converting their debt to us.
That's exactly what I
Now,
meant.
but it isn't true. You see, this is why this information must be known. Because as people start waking up, they keep on trying to discharge debt that don't exist. That ain't theirs. That's why they need to know this history, because the Europeans stealing their birthright still.
And I was getting at is it starts at birth. So most of these people don't know how to save their children, as Korryn was teaching her children how to be fighters, how to be strong, how to know the difference, how to know the difference
Good.
between the authority of the people that are trying to take us down and the people who look like us who
All
are trying
right.
to keep them alive.
Now,
So,
to harmonize, to direct an answer to what you're presenting, let's go back to Noble Drawley so now you can understand it better. Come all ye Asiatics of North America and learn the truth about your nationality and your birthright. You're not Negroes, blacks, colored, or Ethiopians. Learn of your ancient forefathers' divine creed. Come and link yourselves back with the families of nations. Now, when you understand the history, you understand his statement. If you don't understand the history, it's an interesting statement, but it's not actionable. Now, so what is the key? How were they made non-descendable to the estate? By the branding system. So what do you do to cure that? Although you still have work to do. It's called universally, not just with us, universally. It's called nationalization, not naturalization, nationalization. That is the people of the land, the rightful heirs and beneficiaries. What is it referenced for certain rights and privileges for foreigners or aliens? That's called naturalization. Are we clear? Now, when you're talking about Ulysses S. Grant, remember when Ulysses S. Grant won the corporate contract, no, the presidency, yes, against Horace Greeley. He modified the Naturalization Act of 1790, and this is where you see in the law books the Naturalization Act of 1870, and this is where the Europeans start calling themselves white people. Prior to that, they weren't called white people because it's a legal status that belonged to us. This is why the suppression of the 13th, the original Article of Amendment 13 and the Nobility Clause. This is what is celebrated in Philadelphia that you know as the Mummers Parade. And this is why when you do the research and you see in the early parades, you see them with dark in their faces. You see them dark in their faces in the Mummers Parade. All right, they're still in they're still in your estate and your birthright. Daniel, you was mentioning that some of the people wanted to ask some questions, but I will also want to take time to go into, it would be around 106, something like that. I want to deal with citizenship, expatriation. Because I also want you to see further. This is a letter to the Secretary of State of the United States, right? And this is inquiry into these matters of the status of our people. And as you already know, Lincoln did a couple of cases making a distinction between Moors and blacks, being the same blood, but different status, all right? Where blacks are property and Moors are free men, all right? That's another thing that, yeah, as a lawyer, there's another thing that got him tagged to be eliminated. Citizenship of the United States, expatriation, etc. Page 459, chapter 4, temporary provisions, Morocco. So you can see that? See right there? As a matter of fact, you read it out loud. Read it out loud. That letter. From here, right here.
Perfect.
Yes.
There are, strictly speaking, no Moroccan laws relating to citizenship of Moorish subjects in Morocco. The fundamental laws of this non-Christian country are based entirely upon the Islamic code, no part of which treats of the subjects of citizenship. There are, however, numerous treaties and conventions between the various Christian countries in the Moorish Empire, by means of which citizenship in this country is defined. But, as I understand, from the above acknowledged instructions, that is not the desire of the department to call or to report upon such lines. I will therefore confide these remarks to general conditions existing, which may possibly be of some use in connection with the information desired. Number 1. Citizenship in Morocco may be said to be governed by the laws pertaining to the same in other countries, with the exception that all persons residing in Morocco who cannot prove foreign citizenship or protection are considered ipso jure as Moroccan subject or Moorish subjects. 2 and 3. Moorish subjects lost their nationality only by becoming naturalized in or protected by another country having treaty relations with the Moorish Empire. It was established by the Convention of Madrid, concluded July 3, 1880, as follows. Shall I read the article?
Yeah, but you don't have to go any further. But you can see the function that the 14th Amendment, under the naturalization that was imposed, took the birthright. And as you can see, and remember, this is United States law on citizenship and naturalization. How come these black leaders won't read that?
Right.
And it says what? They got to prove that they're not Moors.
And be naturalized by
They got
another
to prove that they're not.
country. Right.
You know what ipso jure means? This is what ipso jure means. Now keep it in context, and then I want you to analyze it, and I want you to comment it. Just use your intelligence.
Okay.
So now I'm going to go in the law book and look up ipso jure. Then when you see that, then you tell me what it means to you, but I'm showing you that there's no such thing as this needing interpretation. That's straightforward, isn't it?
Yeah.
All right, now so I'm going to look up ipso jure, and then you analyze it. But the other thing that I want to say to you, when people try to act like they don't know what this stuff is, and it has nothing to do with the operations of government here, and that we're making this stuff up, you can see that they're COINTELPRO operatives. See, so once you restore the fundamentals to people, they can figure this stuff out themselves. But if they don't have these reference points, they get caught up in who they like, who they don't like, what organization they belong to, what school of thought, and they get caught up in all this gray area of arguing with each other. And they're really incompetent and don't know that they're incompetent. Do you understand? And then they get all sensitive.
About their beliefs.
Yes, yes. It's absolutely, it's
Exhausting.
really, yes. And it's shameful because we allegedly are so spiritual.
Yeah.
Now here's ipso jure, and I want you to see it for yourself, and you read it, because you see, so it's right there at the top.
Okay.
Make sure.
Ipso jure, by the law itself, by the mere operation of law.
How direct can you get? How more direct can you get by that? By the law itself, by the mere operation of law, they're Moorish subjects.
Wow.
Does that leave a maybe in it?
No.
Is there some kind of way that you can interpret that out of it and make it be
There's
something else?
No other way you could say it in 7 different languages.
Yeah.
Now, and yet you have all these so-called black leaders that keep on knocking this information coming from Moors as if it's personal, we're making it up. That's that Taji guy stuff. This is United States law. Why do they stay away from that with their little groups? Do you think that maybe somebody like the Southern Christian law firms is paying them? Oh, yes.
They definitely.
Now you understand COINTELPRO operations?
They mistake fact.
Meanwhile, they're scholars and they go and tell you about the ancient gods of Egypt. Do you see the whole point? Now, of course, by our people not having this information, they're only subject to what they're hearing. And so that's the only thing they have to measure by. This is why Matheno wanted to do this again, to go over some primal points so that a lot of questions would be answered even before the people ask them, if they have primal reference points. And you may have to fill in a little bit here or there, but a child can understand this once given it to them. They just don't have the reference points, so they're what people tell them and what sounds good, and they deal with beliefs. That's why they're always talking beliefs, not facts. See, now we're dealing with facts and documents, aren't we?
Yeah.
Are they disputable?
Now we're dealing with law.
All right, and history. Now we're talking about the United States, right? Expatriation, right?
Right.
And who are they talking about? Moors. And what happens when you talk to these people and they be acting like they don't know who Moors are? Do you see the whole game?
He said the whole rest of the world knows who the Moors were.
The whole game, including these politicians, and that's United States law on citizenship. And then they try to act like Noble Drawley is making this stuff up. Do you see the problem that we have? And the only reason why they get away with it, because who's attacking us? So-called black leaders. Do you see how it works? And the people are protecting the images of their black leaders, who are clearly COINTELPROPs.
Since nothing is changing.
The overseer game has not ended. But if they don't have these reference points, they be thinking that we're competing. We're not competing with them, and we're not trying to knock them. We're trying to redeem our people. We're not trying to change their beliefs. We're trying to restore their estate that they don't know they have. And not being themselves in law, they're not descendable. And they don't know that because no one's teaching them about the trust or estate. They think people are colors. They're arguing colors, and the world's wondering what's wrong with them, because the estate is the issue. And they're paid black leaders sitting around talking about schools of thought and debating when there even is no debate. See how those debate games are really diversions? Do you think that's really accidental? Remember, these people are scholars.
Hundreds of thousands of people every year go to school to be lawyers. Not half of them make it out of law school. Most of the lawyers that you talk to nowadays know that we're not dealing with constitutional law.
Exactly.
They're dealing with how to get away with murder.
Now look up colored in the law book. In the law book, and read that for the camera. Color, then colored. And then you know that the black leaders are paid to tell these people that that means the collective African, Pan-African body politic. Isn't that how they present it? People of color, isn't that right? So look in the law book and look up color, and then read the people, because our people refuse to read.
Title,
Color.
And appearance.
Read it slow so that they can understand exactly what you're saying. Go ahead.
An appearance, semblance, or simulacrum as distinguished from which is real.
That which is, can you read that again?
As distinguished from which is real.
That which is real. Read it again. Color.
An appearance, semblance, or simulacrum as distinguished from that which is real.
Now, so our people think that they're getting Afrocentric, and they just told the world that they what? Fake. What is that? Distinguished from that which is real, which means it's unreal, doesn't it?
Artificial.
If it's unreal, it's fake, isn't it?
People of color.
Now, they're doing that in the name of scholarship, in the name of Afrocentricity, and they're telling the world that they're a fraud, and got the children thinking that that means a term of endearment. Does the world owe us tolerance for that ignorance?
No.
Now, do you understand why even people from Africa have difficulty with our people?
I do now.
They're looked at as frauds and traitors.
So many people say that. It's funny how Africans, they come over here and they hate us, or they look down on us.
Because we're looked at as traitors. They're not doing it to us, we're doing it to ourselves. Because we're telling them we dishonor our mothers and fathers. So if you dishonor your mother and father, they know that you're Moors.
They know we're related.
In blood.
I'm just talking about my aunt.
Do you understand what I'm saying? But you know, they don't like black people because that's the tag that tells who. When you're looking at African people, how can you tell the ones who are dishonored? The ones that's talking about human beings are crayons. They confess it out their own mouth. That's why you got to take people to a ordinary dictionary and show them that they're Moors so they can stop thinking it's a belief. Then you take them to history to show them that they're documented in law. Georgia and them, under the Moroccan Empire, and everybody talking about they don't know who the Moors are. Then take you to the charge of the affairs with the Secretary of State, even telling you how they lost their birthright.
You have to stop looking at these people as white and see the situation.
They're Europeans, call them who they. This is back to they're doing identity theft and we're doing identity fraud.
Our people assume their mindset and then in turn hate themselves in the situation.
That's why they do, because they're constantly being rejected and they don't like the feeling.
So I feel like it not started, but it had a lot to do with segregation. We wanted to go to their schools, not just have better schools for ourselves, but we wanted to go to their schools and have their education, and in turn,
now,
became
good.
a
Now look up
society
color.
and a system.
Look up color now and read that. Right in harmony with what you're talking about right now. Color.
Okay. By common usage
No,
in
say you
America.
gotta say the word first. Remember
Color.
proper. Yes.
Color. By common usage in America, this term and such phrases as colored persons, the colored race, colored men, and the alike is used to designate Negroes or persons of the African race, including all persons of mixed blood descended from the Negro ancestry.
Keep on.
After that, it's Collins versus Oklahoma
Yeah,
State
now you'll
Hospital.
go past the law cases because it's giving you reference so you can see it's even been determined in law. Now go to the small print
So
paragraph
down the
beneath it.
law, it says for color,
Yeah.
where a state constitution provided for separate schools for the white and colored races, the term white race was held to be limited to the Caucasian race, and the term colored races to embrace all other races. Rice versus Gong Lum.
Continue.
It has also been held that there is no legal technical signification to the phrase colored person, which the courts are bound judicially to know.
Now read that past part again.
It has been held that there is no legal technical signification to the phrase colored persons, which the courts are bound judicially to know.
So what happens? You go into court as a colored person. Are they bound to recognize you?
No.
Are they obligated to recognize you?
Automatically what?
Why? Because there's no
Okay.
lawful.
And
There's
there's
not.
no
There's
law.
no really scientific. It's a term. It's a phrase. It's a term. It's pejorative, isn't it? Now that's law. Now, what happens if you say that to people who keep playing these Afrocentric games with our people? Won't they argue you to the ground? And start talking about that's Moorish thing and we making that stuff up? And misleading people deliberately, knowing that they are not. See, this is what these guys know. They know that the people that's following these little schools of thought don't have this information.
They only have
So they can play them and take their finance, get them all in these emotional arguments and beat the hell up and stuff like that. So they can play these civil rights games and get paid in the background, looking like they doing something for the people, the struggle. And it all appears legitimate on the surface, doesn't it? Until you study and find out that this is a social engineering mind control game and they've been part of it. You can see why they're upset with us and why the Southern Christian Poverty Law Firm sicked these shills on us that's located here in Philadelphia. And trying to say that we set that girl up to get her killed and all that kind of stuff. Korryn, that they assassinated.
Is that what? Okay, so I.
We're talking about the guy, the COINTELPRO
I
operators.
just heard about what happened. I personally don't watch the news. I don't have cable.
Yeah,
in my
but I'm
house.
just telling you. I'm just telling
that.
you what we're discovering in the background.
But I did see a video where she was asking for delegation of authority.
Exactly,
Where she didn't have a right
because
to
she
her own
knew-
home against intruders.
She knew that the Pope had expunged all of their IE licenses. and the Pope owns all of the corporate entities. And then they try to make her look like she was out to lunch because they know our people don't know this. And so she was suing them, so they put a hit on her and act like she was wrong. And then they send out their black shills to muddy the water. But see, their black shills are counting on the masses don't have this information. That's another reason we're doing this, to educate the people, so they can recognize who the COINTELPRO are and protect themselves. Do you understand? Because these guys seem like intelligent scholars and innocent, like they really love their people. You wait till these people find out who they really are. I ain't going to have to say nothing. People won't take care of them.
Most of the policy enforcers out here really are equally ignorant.
They're not. See, all right, let's talk this. Let's talk this. Let's talk this. Let's talk this.
Okay.
Let's talk this.
I did want to back up my...
I wish I had
Saying
more
that.
documents here. This is another reason why. Remember, we're talking about reference points, right, Nathaniel? And we're going to do this again in the future, you know, whether you're here or at another spot. And I'm going to bring in the oath of ethics that these people must sign.
I have
See, and this
actually.
is, you got the oath of
I
ethics?
do.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, I do. I keep it in my car.
Oh, I just love
Oh, you
it.
know, we ready with the list of sheriffs. Oh, we got it all. So
Hey,
Cape Court
Daniel.
Lodge, you're talking about this?
Sister got
Right
your back,
here.
man. Oh, this girl. This, oh, you on to, no, I ain't going to let you do it.
Oh.
This is wrong. Now, hold on. Now let's look at this, cuz. Now, keep this in mind. One of the reasons why we're even doing this, and I wish the brother was still here, is almost because we have to clean our misconceptions and stop making excuses for people talking about what they don't know. We're the ones that don't know. And they've been taking advantage of you consciously.
There are a lot of us.
Now, remember all of these people, cops, detectives, all these people in law and claim to be law, have to sign this to do these jobs. Now, you read that, then turn around. Now, look at you. Now, let's make two people here. You sit right here. We're going to lift spirit sister up. And spirit sister going to sit over here.
All right.
And then you talk to spirit sister, you the spirit, and you just talk to this physical sister that keep on talking about what these people don't know. They keep effing us up, but they don't know nothing. Hold on, they don't understand. Some of those ignorant. Now, read that out, then make that statement again. Read it.
The Law Enforcement Code of Ethics.
Read it again.
The Law Enforcement Code of Ethics.
Can you read it again? Because we got to really, you know, screw this down.
The Law Enforcement Code of Ethics.
Continue.
As a law enforcement officer, my fundamental duty is to serve mankind, to safeguard lives and property, to protect the innocent against deception, the weak against oppression or intimidation, and the peaceful against violence or disorder, and to reject the constitutional rights and to respect the constitutional rights of all men to liberty, equality, and justice. It continues to say, I will keep my private life unsullied as an example to all, maintain courageous, calm, in the face of danger, scorn or ridicule, develop self-restraint, and be constantly mindful of the welfare of others. Honest in thought and deed, in both my personal and official life. I will be exemplary in obeying the laws of the land and regulations of my department. Whatever I see or hear of a confidential nature, or that is confided to me in my official capacity, will be kept ever secret unless revelation is necessary in my performance of duty. I will never act officiously. I apologize. I will never act officiously or permit personal feelings, prejudices, animosities, or friendships to influence my decisions. With no compromise for crime, with relentless prosecution of criminals, I will enforce the law cautiously and appropriately without fear or favor, malice or ill will, never employing unnecessary force or violence, and never accepting gratuities. I recognize the badge of my office as a symbol of public faith, and I accept it as public trust to be held so long as I am true to ethics and police service.
And they do exactly the opposite, don't they?
Every day.
And then what do people keep saying? They don't understand the Constitution, which is the supreme law of the land.
I will never, it specifically said I will never allow my feelings, prejudices, or friendships influence my decisions. And we all know them to be all
And
about
what
their
happens to
friendships
anybody that
and
enforces the
influence.
Constitution? They call them troublemakers, treason, terrorists, sovereign citizens, and everything else that command their delegation of authority and their obligation to the law of the land.
That's what it says.
And then what do other people keep saying? Some of them don't know. You are saying that. However, that's an incompetent statement. And you're excusing them to do injury to people. They're not excused.
They are not.
And they do know. It is the people that don't know and keep transferring their ignorance on these people who are abusing them to excuse them in their abuse of others, right in their face.
So let me please clarify my statement by saying what I meant by
I know
most
what you
of them
meant,
are
but
ignorance
continue.
also is most of these people are also still believing that they are black as well, signing up to be policy enforcers and having
For
no
a
idea.
job.
Yes.
And even when they get in there, they start their little what? Black organizations, because they're rejected even when they get in there.
I know somebody from my neighborhood who, when all the Black Lives Matter thing started, posted all the pictures of how they were a state trooper now.
Yeah.
I guess they don't really. Or do they? I'm confused. Who
No,
are
you're not
you?
confused. What's confusing is that we're discussing the real facts as opposed to throwing around the opinions. See, this is what it's at. We get caught in trying to express our emotional opinions and thoughts in different conversations that we have with people instead of going back to the law that they're all obligated to. And then when we start seeing the contradiction, we're trying to find a comfort zone with it all. Start interjecting our biases. Meanwhile, the children are getting killed on the street. Innocent men and families are being broke up while we sit and make excuses for these criminals that are claiming to be officers when they're really gang members using the office to do what? To carry out the policies of unum sanctum for the Jesuit order in the Popes of Rome under colonial operations, pretending to be officers of law when they're actually what? Highwaymen and organized criminals.
Kidnapping people and holding them for ransom.
Death and stealing people's automobiles and stealing people's cars and stuff, and then selling them and calling it law when they're supposed to secure and protect the people's constitutional secured rights. They're actually using their gang members and networking to rob the people. And they've been robbing people so much that the courts, that the Supreme Court had to close the traffic courts in Philadelphia. They just went around and used another system. You think they did that because these people don't know? And we keep making excuses, which indicates our ignorance, which means we keep condoning the injury to our own people because we don't want to face reality that these people are waging war on us. Do you understand? In other words, it's like a sense of denial because it's so ugly. Do you understand what I'm saying to you?
I understand.
And I'm glad you had that because it's like, this is why you got to stick with documents because we keep interjecting our emotional thoughts. Keep your private stuff out of it. Deal with the facts. Now, this is the directions that we have to take our people in. To get them off these emotional school of thought black stuff and deal with the facts.
Thanks.
They're not going to fix anything until they do what? Educate themselves. Now, while you're there, and this is again for the sake of the assassinated matriarchal angel liberator, Korryn Gaines, read, this is called stare decisis. This is Supreme Court law, established law of the land. Now, and this is encounter, now this is not our opinion, this is the law, for the so-called black leader shills that the Southern Christian poverty law firm has set out, who they pay off, who are a couple of them domiciled in Philadelphia, and keep talking about this stuff is lunch. Now read the law.
The Supreme Court cases.
That's just some of them. Read them and read them clearly and distinctly.
Mind you, I keep this in my car, everybody, for this sheer purpose. 13 Supreme Court law case reports. Number 1, the right to travel, the right to mode of conveyance, the right to locomotion are all absolute rights, and the police cannot make void the exercise of rights. State versus Armstead.
Now, is that not the position that she held by law? And what did they do? They assassinated her, didn't they? And the black shills working for the Southern Christian poverty law firm have been doing what? Knocking her, talking about she's out to lunch, trying to say that we set her up for assassination.
They don't want you to wake up.
Do you see? And she was upholding the law. And isn't that oath of ethics? Didn't they know what they was doing? Didn't she know? Because they were harassing and threatening her earlier. They even removed documents so they could cover up. And even while they were plotting, sending out a SWAT team to assassinate her, they were erasing her Facebook page at the same time.
Yep.
Now you tell me that's not a clear sign of conspiracy. Now, I'm not going to interrupt again. I want you to read them all. And then I want you to talk as a sister, as a human. And then look at these black shills that have been talking trash. Doesn't this information expose them? Now, go ahead, read it all the way through.
Number 2, the use of highways for the purpose of travel and transportation is not a mere privilege, but a common and fundamental right of which the public and natural beings cannot be rightfully deprived. Chicago Motor Coach versus Chicago 33, Illinois. Number 3, the right to park or travel is part of the liberty of which the natural person, citizen, cannot be deprived without due process of law under the 5th Amendment of the United States Constitution. That includes parking on Philadelphia streets. Number 4, the right of a citizen to travel upon public highways and to transport one's property thereon, either by carriage or automobile, is not a mere privilege, which a city may prohibit or permit at will, but a common right which he or she under the right to life and liberty, and which he or she has under the right to liberty and the pursuit of happiness. Thomas versus Smith. Number 5, state police power extends only to immediate threats to public safety, health, welfare, and etc. Michigan versus Duke. Which speeding and driving are not, which was extended in California versus Farley. Number 6, the state is prohibited from violating substantive rights. Owen versus City. And it cannot do by one power, for example, police power, that is, for example, prohibit expressly to any other such power, for example, taxation, eminent domain, or any of those as a matter of law, nor indirectly that which is prohibited to it directly, which is pretty much saying that they can't violate any of their substantive rights.
And then make excuses by going around the corner to make up some kind of regular law, or I say some rule or some kind of ordinance to subvert the law and then take people's car or boot their car or take their car or even give them a ticket.
Right.
Continue.
Yes. Number 7, traveling in an automobile on the public roads is not a threat to the public safety or health and constituted as no hazard to the public, and such a traveler owed nothing more than due care as a regard of tort for negligence to the public, and the owner owed no other duty to the public. He or she and her auto having equal rights to the roadways or highways as horses and wagons. This same right still substantive rule in speeding, running stop signs, traveling without license plates or registration are not threats to public safety and thus are not arrestable offenses. So I read that kind of fast. But it pretty much says that traveling in an automobile on public roads is not a threat to public safety or health as long as you're driving with due care and regards for other people on the road. That the owner and its car have equal rights on the public highways, and I do say car as an auto, as horses, wagons, or anything else that you could use as a mode of conveyance for travel. Not running stop signs, speeding, traveling without a license or registration, none of these are threats to public safety and thus are not arrestable offenses.
Do you see the laws being violated? And they took an oath to uphold this, and they were what? They were hitmen, and they were absolutely violating the law. They targeted her, and what do you have these black shills talking trash, defending the gang of New York, pretending to be officers when they're carrying out Klan activities with the black shills paid off in the community to muddy the water.
Let it also be said that you're not an officer unless you're elected.
Exactly, which is
into
why
office.
you don't call them that, because they're not.
So when you go, what's the problem?
They're
with officer?
highwaymen, which you can also read in the law book.
You
Continue to
automatically
read.
give them jurisdiction. So,
Yes.
continuing on to number 8, under the United States Republic's constitutional system of government, and upon the individuality and intelligence of the citizen, the state does not claim control one's conduct to others, leaving one the sole judge as to all that affects oneself. Meaning, under the Constitution, you have the right to be your own master.
It means now you understand that even the seatbelt fines and all that stuff is BS.
If you as the master choose not to wear a seatbelt, then you as the master
It's
of
your
sole
right.
decision.
You see what they've been doing, robbing the people? See why the Pope expunged their licenses? Continue to read.
Number 9, where rights secured by the Constitution are involved, there can be no rulemaking or legislation which would abrogate them.
And they've been doing everything but that, haven't they?
Miranda versus Arizona, and everybody's familiar with Miranda rights.
Yeah, continue.
10, the claim and exercise of constitutional rights cannot be converted into a crime. The claim and exercise of constitutional rights cannot be converted into a crime.
And what they've been doing, converting people's rights into crimes, calling them sovereign citizen terrorists for exercising constitutional rights, and they're counting on the ignorance of the masses under the control of their Negro black leader guys that they put in the neighborhood. You see the point? Keep on reading.
Number 11, for a crime to exist, there must be an injured party.
It's called corpus delicti. Continue.
Corpus delicti. There can be no sanction nor penalty imposed on one because of this constitutional right.
Continue.
Number 12, if any tribunal, court, finds absence of proof of jurisdiction over a person and subject matter, the case must be dismissed. The accuser bears the burden of proof beyond a reasonable doubt. Louisville versus Motley.
So they don't have delegation of authority to carry out what they're carrying out, and when questioned, what are they doing? They're what? Threatening, shooting, beating up, and harming people and arresting them in violation of law and in violation of the oath of ethics, and people sitting around talking about they don't know.
But these are your law enforcers.
No, the people don't know. This is what's wrong. Continue.
13, lack of federal jurisdiction cannot be waived or overcome by agreements of parties. Griffin versus Matthews. And want of jurisdiction may not be cured by the consent of parties.
That means you can't even give the right away, and they can't even take it. You can't even contract it away. So you can't even get a license to lose them. Do you understand? See why these? You see why these so-called with the role of these so-called black leaders really are to keep the people diverted? But it doesn't appear like that on the surface, does it? Does it? Until you restore the reference points to our people that has been removed from them. You know yourself that most of our people don't have this information, and the so-called black leaders don't give it to them. And why are they attacking the Moors? Because we've been giving the people the information that they've been paid to hold back. And so they take us as enemies because we're exposing them as what exactly they are. COINTELPRO operatives. And we don't have to say it. All we have to do is educate the people, and it becomes absolutely obvious.
So I have two more that
Go
aren't
ahead.
necessarily a part of the 13
Yes, but go ahead.
original, but these are two of my favorites just
Go
because.
ahead. All right.
It says, a person driving an automobile cannot be stopped to see if he or she is licensed to drive, unless there is a reasonable suspicion the person is engaged in criminal conduct. That's Delaware versus Prowse. But it's interesting because when you come to criminal conduct, you come to find in a different court case that it says traffic infractions are not a crime. People
And what do
versus
they
theft.
do? They be arresting the people who say crime.
Oh,
And
you
that-
had reasonable suspicion to pull me over,
Yes.
but nothing about driving is a crime.
Now you
So
see
it
them-
could never be reasonable suspicion to pull me over.
Now you see them, what do you call them? Them where they block off highways and force people into these cones and start asking them for stuff and their papers and stuff. That's a violation of law.
That happened to us once.
And them livestops and stuff like that. That's a violation of law.
We were driving through New Mexico, they were looking for Mexicans in the trunk.
Oh
Yeah.
my goodness.
We'll continue.
I have a couple.
Go.
So, if a state converts a liberty into a privilege, the citizen can engage in the right with impunity. So,
That means you can sue, doesn't it?
right.
Now you see why they blocking. Now you see why they put a hit on her, because she sued them. And their bonds were going up. They know that the masses are ignorant, so they set out their black shills to start attacking immediately to muddy the water and act like she was out to lunch. But they only can get away with that because they know this information is not available to our people.
Licenses are for the conduct of business, profession, occupation, the exercise of which they are a privilege. Licensing is in the nature of a special privilege.
That's CDLs. That's only for commerce. It's not for common people. Do you see how clear that is? Meaning that how far do they have to go to beat it into our head that it doesn't apply to the living person, natural person, that they've been imposing it on you. They've converted your right into a crime, converted it into a privilege, and then robbing you. Then stealing your stuff in the name of law, not with law. And they've set up businesses robbing our people. And what? Economically destroying our families.
The purpose of this license or licensing in the nature of a special privilege is entitling licensee to do something that he or she would not be entitled to do without a license. Driving is something that you need a license to do, but you have
That's
a
for commerce
constitutional right
only.
to travel.
Right, now
As
you
natural
know that.
people, we have a constitutional right to travel. And then some people say, oh, well, they'll come take my car, or certain things about their car and registration.
Now what they're
about
saying
my
is what
tax?
these people practice. They're not, see at that point, they're not talking law. They're identifying the criminality, but they're not calling it criminality. That's where the problem is.
Right.
Because they're ignorant.
And they hold these people with authority that they
Yes,
have.
because they went down to the Army Navy store and bought a blue suit, and they're organized crime. So the Supreme Court is telling you that. And I know you've already read cases where the Supreme Court has declared those state courts and them traffic courts as incompetent. I know you read that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, there you go.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't these so-called black leaders deal and expose this to the people, since they want to deal with our people's liberty? Because they would have to admit what? That the Moors are talking facts, not some belief system. But because they don't want this information out, because they're getting kickbacks from these corporate entities like the Southern Christian Poverty Law Firm, etc., they act like the Moors are out to lunch and creating problems. What they mean is, see, because if these Europeans can't steal people's cars, they can't split the funds with their black leaders in the communities whose job it is to keep these people on this marching treadmill.
Now, speaking of that, this is the last Supreme Court case,
Go ahead.
and it's now my new favorite. Officers of the court have no immunity when violating a constitutional right from liability, for they are deemed to know the law.
So what are they saying? Are they excused?
No,
And what do we keep on doing?
excusing them.
And so if you excuse them, what are you doing? You're sanctioning injury on your own self and your own people.
We're excusing them. We're letting
Yeah,
them get
there
away
is
with
no
everything
excuse.
that they're doing.
See, this is the whole point. There is no excuse, and we keep making it for them. Do you see why our people need this information? Is there a gray area? The gray area is their ignorance. And they keep interjecting their own biases and their beliefs. You're not dealing with biases and beliefs, you're dealing with the law. You're either going to be in the law or you're going to be out of it. Now you see why they call us people of color? Because they're fake, but they want the rights of humans. You see the problem?
Yes.
And then they keep on marching and praying and complaining because they don't have rights, but they themselves keep rejecting the law.
Yes, and remove themselves from the families, but want the families
Now
to
you
come
understand
support.
why Drew Ali said what coming back into the constitutional fold of government. You're part and parcel of this said government, but you keep diluting, practicing them things to delude to slavery. Then they got these shills out here promoting it, looking legitimate like black scholars. You get the point? Now you understand why they're attacking Moors, conscious Moors, even though they know they're Moors too. And they're doing all this black versus Moor. And you do, I'm telling you, but once you understand this, you understand that our job is to get this information to the people because they get caught in this gray area until they're really educated. And we got to get them over the hump of the emotional thing and make them think we're not attacking their black leader guys.
Right.
We're delivering them their knowledge of their birthright, and they keep thinking it's a belief.
They keep asking for help. They keep wanting an answer. We keep giving it to them. They go, oh, not that. We need other help from some.
Right. Know what they keep asking? We're drowning. Teach us how to swim, then you show them how to swim. No, I don't want you to teach me like that. I want you to teach me how I know how.
I don't want a doggy
Well,
paddle. I want
if
a
you can't
backstroke.
swim, if you can't swim, listen to the instructions.
They don't want doggy paddle. They want backstroke.
And then when other people from other nations, out of frustration, just abandon us, then they want to act like they're white. Because they are. Because it's a legal status. Do you?
Yes.
So we free white persons too, since you're there. Because we want to take advantage of this moment since Nathaniel, he's been running himself in the hole to try to make this happen. So I give him credit for being tired and still trying to get some work done after working all day. Yeah. Free white persons. Free
And they're free.
white persons. And of course, you know it's a status, but you already know that the job of the shills is to keep telling our people that they're black and that the European's a white man.
Free.
Right. Which of course gives up their birthright again.
All right. Free white persons. Free white persons referred to in the Naturalization Act as amended by Act July 14, 1870, has meaning naturally given to it when first used in 1 Sanction 103 C3, meaning all persons belonging to the European races, then commonly counted as white, and their descendants, including such descendants in other countries to which they have immigrated.
Right.
Then it goes down into legality.
And where you see it, say the phrase so that people can be very clear because it's condensed, because it's a law book. So where it says it, say it in full, free white persons, so it can be clearly understood.
Free white persons includes all European Jews, more or less intermixed with the peoples of Celtic, Scandinavian, Teutonic, Iberian, Latin, Greek, and Slavic descent. It includes
Free white persons,
free white persons, includes Magyars,
Magyars,
Lapps and Finns, and the Basques of Albanians. It includes
free white persons,
includes mixed Latin, Celtic, Iberian, and Moorish inhabitants of Spain and Portugal, and mixed Greek, Latin, Phoenician, and North American inhabitants of Sicily, and the mixed Slav and Tartar inhabitants of South Russia. Free white persons does not mean Caucasian race.
Repeat it.
Free white persons does not mean Caucasian race.
Repeat it.
Free white persons does not mean Caucasian race, Aryan race, or Indo-European races, nor the mixed Indo-European, Dravidian, Semitic, or Mongolian peoples who inhabit Persia. A Syrian of Asiatic birth and descent will not be entitled to become a naturalized citizen of the United States as being a free white person.
So you can see it's a legal status, isn't it? And you see North Africans, Moors, Moorish, Phoenicians, etc. are all white people, aren't they?
Yeah.
And it does not mean Caucasian race, does it? So what happens when our people keep calling these Europeans white man? They just call them sovereign. You see the problem?
I have all of my friends no longer referring
Now
to
the point that I'm making to you,
the European.
So-
you're refer-
it is our
Once you
duty
change
to
your
get this
language.
knowledge back to our people because they've been deprived.
starts to set in.
This, all of this and more is part of their miseducation that they admit to. And they're handicapped. And we're trying to do what? Help redeem them. Now you understand what Drew Ali says? Help in the great missionary work to bring our people back into the constitutional fold of government. That has nothing to do with belief, does it?
Okay.
We're dealing with evidence and documents, aren't we?
Yes.
And we've got to get the people to recognize that and not approach this from an emotional point of view because they have been trained to think it's a religious belief. And it's their birthright. And of course, the exposure of this information logically will cause institutions that's been living off these people to collapse. And then what it does, it takes the finance out of the black leader pockets who the corporate entities are paying in the background.
If only they knew what the rights of the indigenous people did. for
That's
them.
why Obama had to do it. It's
If
almost like
only they knew.
it's almost like there's constant action to try to get these people back to their nationality, and the black leaders keep on leading them away. You know, talking about the Moors are out to lunch.
They all talk about how they went their 40 acres and a mule, but won't pick up
And
a book
don't
to
even
figure out who they
know
are.
anything about the 3630, and don't even know anything about the Bureau of Refugees, Freedmen, and Abandoned Lands.
They
Don't even
want
know that's the
some
official
kind of
name.
reparation for ancestors that they won't respect or get
They
to learn about.
exactly keep this in mind. If not in their proper person and not see now, let's look at reparations. Matter of fact, look at reparations and look what the requirement is. And notice that it's talking about nations.
Nations.
Therefore, nationality. So if you're not of a nation, can you get reparation?
No.
Logic. Read reparations. And so you must name the nation, mustn't you? You got to name the parties. It must be specific, mustn't it? They talk about, well, the white man and the black man, but according to the green man, no matter what color you are, need black reparations. Do you understand how asinine that is? But they don't know because they don't know better. Because they've been misled by Europeans and their what? Shill black leader guys. Who they think are scholars.
While she looking up that, can you explain why you don't want, why they shouldn't be, anybody shouldn't be calling the sovereign citizens? Because I noticed that they called Korryn a
Because
sovereign
it doesn't,
citizen.
one, it doesn't go together. And that was set up by, I think it was that order there, that Southern Christian Poverty Law Center under CIA.
There's two
Black
different
Buck.
groups. There's-
Yeah, well, basically, yeah, it's a misrepresentation. See, because
Dred Scott came to that.
under Constitution law, sovereignty is the people. It's a right. But the deal of it is, number one, if you say citizen, you must name the nation state. The word citizen doesn't go by itself. And this goes back to the 14th Amendment. See, so what they're implying is that our people are 14th Amendment citizens, which is really stock, and therefore they can't be sovereign. Therefore they're doing seditious acts. You see the trap? That's why they create the tag. When it's a fraud. In other words, what they do, they misrepresent the people, mistag them, then attack them on that misinformation.
So instead of sovereign citizen, just national?
No, we're nationals of the land. You see, you have nationals, you have citizen, you have subject, and you have aliens. These are different statuses. And none of which Moors, conscious Moors, claim to be. You see, we're nationals. So what they're doing, just like they put it's called an act of barratry. This is where they create fictitious statements and fictitious names, and then use them, attack the people when the people didn't say that status. In other words, literally they're lying. Misclassify people and then attack them on it. We're national, we're Moorish nationals, the people of the land. That ain't sovereign citizen. Although the people under the corporate United States have a right to claim that if they want to. But that doesn't apply to us as the land, we're nationals. This is why people need to understand government and understand the operations of government. This is also why it's important for people to even say, read the letter from George Washington, because if they decipher that, they can understand what their status is even from that. And then they can understand that the treaty between belligerent parties. Go ahead, sis, read that.
Well, she's saying it doesn't necessarily say anything about a nation in there.
It doesn't in this definition of reparations, but the one that I do know is for the repairing of nations.
Yes, exactly. And so, is that repairing of colors?
It says the redress of an injury, amends for wrong inflicted.
Yes.
Reparations is
That's short.
Yeah.
In other words, now you must name it's back to any claim in law to be actionable. The parties must be named, and it must be specific. That's what reparation is. Between one nation, or body of nation that injured another nation. They must be named, and in international law, that means they must be restored and repaired. That's reparation. This is another reason why they took our people's nationality, so that they couldn't make a claim. You see the point? On top of the fact, putting their names on our people, so that when our people try to make an argument, they're on the wrong side of the chessboard.
The other definition.
You could,
Compensation for.
and they don't know better
Damage.
because no one's explaining to them that you cannot sue in another man's name for a right. You can't sue your own opposition. In other words, you can't sue Smith while you claim to be Smith when he's really Smith and you ain't.
Right.
Dred Scott. You see the concept in our people. The only reason they don't get it is because they're misled by the so-called black leaders that keep saying,
Most people don't even really understand the depth of what happened with the Dred Scott case.
which
They
is
got
the
taught it in
most
school,
important.
So
Let's
understand
qualify
that
this.
they missed the most important parts for what it meant for
It's
us to
status.
not be citizens.
Status. Now look at this. Let's qualify it, and then come back to what you said. The Dred Scott case is the most important slave case ever to come before the Supreme Courts of the United States. Now back up to what you said, and you see how not only are we declared incompetent, but the so-called black leaders will never really go into that. If they do, they'll call it racism and won't argue that it's a status issue. The same thing with Amistad. Same principle. And the rule don't change. And then half of the people aren't even aware of the Dred Scott case, are they? Yet it's the most important slave case ever. And most of them couldn't even give you a dissertation on it. Do you see the real problem? And why not? They're following their black leaders who they think are working in their interest, who are really COINTELPRO operatives.
Because Black Lives Matter, not all that stuff you're talking about.
And they're not black. Now, Black Lives Matter, green lives do too, so do the purple ones. How about the orange ones? How about the plaid
out
ones?
here fighting for the polar bears, then
And now they're mad because some of the Europeans muddied the argument by saying white lives matter. Now they're mad against, you see how convoluted that is? And they don't get it that they're being played with.
The best part of that, actually, I did see, like I said, I don't have the news or watch TV, but I did see a little bit of that footage. And when they were going live in New York City with the protest for Black Lives Matter,
Yeah.
you see how quickly they had to change the caption at the bottom. Because the people who were walking up the streets with their hands up didn't look like you and I.
Exactly.
All
And they're
lives
right
matter.
that Black Lives Matter because
And we
they're
stand up
black
for that.
people. See, because it's Middle English. And it comes from Old High German. It actually means what? Pale. But our people can't
I didn't
read it.
understand, now I'll be honest, I didn't understand how black meant pale until this summer. So I spent all summer by the pool and in the sun with my natural hair this year.
Yes.
No weave, nothing
Yeah.
extra. So I noticed that in my skin getting darker, my hair was getting lighter.
Mhm.
Around the edges it would get a little blonde,
Yeah,
and
it gets
eventually
sandy.
it got sandy,
Gets
and
sandy.
it gets pale.
Yeah.
And then to me that was the definition of black. It gets pale, it gets a little
Yeah.
lighter, not
It's Blake.
darker.
Blake.
It's baconing,
yeah,
it's baking,
it's
it's
called Blake.
blackening. And that's what made sense.
That's what Blake.
For most
black.
people who would look at black, they would be confused as to how black could be pale or how black could be shiny or
Now.
any of the other definitions
Now.
of black when they don't know how to apply it to anything other than a color.
Yes. And now this is third grade again, right? Third grade, when they're teaching art, little children, they will give them primary colors, and then they will tell them very clearly and distinctly, white and black are not part of the primary color spectrum. They're technically not considered colors at all.
Wow.
But we say that to give them a reference point. And what do these so-called scholars keep on saying? That it's a color and it means Afrocentricity. Do you see the incompetence? Hold on. Do you understand? Third grade again. So we deal with grammar and basic art. It's amazing, more than amazing. You know, and they reject knowledge as if it's attacking them. And then wonder why the rest of the world don't take us serious. And it's unfair to the rest of the world. And they get
It
tired of
does attack them.
they
in
get
their
tired of
minds.
dealing with us, dealing with our BS.
It attacks everything that they believe. It attacks everything that they fight for, everything that they base their lives around until now. Until the truth hits them and they have a reason to look elsewhere and stop questioning the things that they hate so much. They stop questioning, why do I have to go to work? They stop questioning, why do I have to be taxed? Just like Morpheus said in the Matrix, all those things that make you itch or question in the back of your mind that you aren't really supposed to be doing is for a reason, because you're really not supposed to be doing it. There's something wrong with every single one of
Exactly.
those systems, and until you figure that out, until you get your medicine, until you take your red or blue pill, you'll never know. You'll just be stuck in the matrix with the next person. It's crazy.
And this is where, and we will make sure that we get you a dictionary on the college dictionary on the English language, and then it has the appendix in the back where you can look up the etymology, and then it'll send, just like this will tell you old Middle English derived from Old High German, Black, etc. And then you would go into the appendix and it would tell you pale and shining. So words mean what they mean. They don't mean ebonics, what you want to make it to be, since you're too lazy to study the discipline, because culture isn't a language and you want to make things up because you're lazy or you don't have books, and then make it be what you want to be and then start teaching it to the children and call it legitimate. And this is what they keep doing to our children, making things worse.
They do it with every song that they don't know the lyrics to. You ever hear somebody completely murder a song?
Yeah.
They sing it, and they'll tell you that that's what the lyrics are, because
Yeah,
that's what they hear.
yes,
That's not the lyrics though.
exactly.
That's just what you hear.
Yeah,
And they go teaching this as if it's the word, and it's just what you hear.
exactly. And remember the etymon. So let's just state this so that the listeners can kind of understand what we're talking about, because we don't want to talk around them. We want them to really understand why we're passionately making these statements to redeem them. because we want them to know that we're not appealing to any clubism or competing. We're trying to educate them so that they can reason, intelligence, common sense on facts, not emotions and beliefs or biases. All right? Now I want you to read this too. So put that down for a minute. And right here, where my thumb is, that's etymon. And of course, etymology is up there. So you want to read etymon, then you're going to read etymology.
Okay.
All right?
Etymon, the true literal sense of a word. Etymology, the original root or primitive word, also its original signification or root meaning. And then we have,
Now, just right there, just right there, you know and I know when you present basic third grade etymon degree to most of our people, they don't even know what etymon is. Now, just do an intelligent analysis. If most of our people don't know what an etymon is, and you're reading what it is, do you understand why most of our people are declared that they can't read or that they're educated illiterates and they get insulted because they can pronounce words ebonically and they swear they can read and don't even know the science of language, which is right there? Is that universal or is that biased?
universal.
All right, now read etymology.
Etymology, the true account and analysis of a word. The true literal sense of a word. True logos, description. Okay, then it has several bullets in definition. Number 1, it says the origin and development of a word, tracing a word back as far as possible, generally by methods of comparative linguistics. Number 2, an account of this. In this dictionary, etymologies are given in brackets following the part of speech label. 3, the branch of linguistics that deals with the origin and development of words. 4, in grammar, the division which treats of various inflections and modifications of words and shows how they are formed from their simple root.
Without going any further, isn't that an education in itself? It even tells you how to read a dictionary, and most people don't even know. So if you ask them the etymology or the etymology brackets, the part of speech, they pause because it's not on the surface of their knowledge, is it? So if you give our people contracts and stuff like that, even a mortgage, most of them think that they're buying something and that they're owning something, don't they? Don't they? Read mortgage. And this is just an example that we're showing where our people can't read. And even how our communities are constantly being gentrified. Mortgage, and then part of speech and break it down.
Mortgage. You said the part of speech and break it down also?
Yeah.
Mortgage, a noun. So it says OF, so Old French. Mortgage, literal, dead pledge. Mort.
Dead pledge, doesn't it?
Yep.
Dead pledge.
Yeah.
How many people in our community got mortgage contracts and don't even know it's a dead pledge? Contracts dead and they themselves are the pledge. And then the European come back and gentrify the community and they want to talk about racism. And I have mortgage, I own it. It's a dead pledge. It can't damn read. Do you understand the problem that we have? Now, see where etymology has its role? And half our people will sit up and argue with you about what they believe and talk about what they own. Do you understand?
It says mortgage deed, a deed given by way of mortgage. But once you know what a mortgage is,
It's a deed pledge.
A deed given away by dead pledge.
Now, isn't Philadelphia being gentrified faster than any place in the country? And aren't they stealing people's houses left and right, and we're the main targets? They got, mortgage. You got a dead pledge. No, mortgage. You got a dead pledge. Contract was dead, and you're the pledge, and we come and taking your sharecropping stuff. You're being thrown off. They don't even know it's a sharecropping agreement. Do you understand? And we try to educate them, and the black leaders start talking about that Moore stuff that get them in trouble. You see the problem that we have?
Who's going to get in trouble? Them.
For dealing with logic and facts. In other words, like this, you can't, what they're trying to say is don't talk back to the slave master.
Right.
Don't rock the boat.
That's exactly what they're saying.
That's exactly what they're saying.
Wow.
But a person who can't read doesn't take it that way, do they?
They're being Samuel L. Jackson and Django.
Exactly. As a matter of fact, Django's telling you pretty much just what we're telling you. Anyway, any questions, Nathaniel, from the people? And if you please interject, please help us out. See, because it's the consciousness that's necessary. And let's look at this. Let's be honest. Because we were asking some questions earlier, and I mentioned the oath of ethics, and you went into it. You happen to have it. Of course, I don't have it with me. But even when you were reading it, and you're familiar with it, you always carry in your car. Even as you were reading it, it was actually renewing a consciousness in you. Because you were still, even when you read it again, it was starting to make you realize how important it actually is. Not that you minimized it because you read it thoroughly, but it made you realize small details of assurances that you underestimated even yourself, and you already got it. So imagine the people that don't have it at all, don't even know about it.
They're supposed to not be biased to friendships, but you know that firsthand they'll do whatever they can for their partner or the person that they sit next to, or whoever's on the force, or anybody in blue, because
they're protecting their criminality.
Yeah. Do they have any questions?
Well, go ahead. Now you understand why people who have this knowledge are treated as a threat.
Says it would seem that the climate of 1774 with the modern Europeans at northwestern Mexico, and how the Constitution of 1791 was the protection for many of the unjust from the British, and now even in this cycle, Europeans are still claiming their justice via the Declaration of 1776 to protect their so-called gun rights. What will it take to get our unconscious Moors to realize that marching, praying for false help, and so-called voting, etc., will never supersede the supreme law of the land, of this land, Morocco? It seems we will watch many of our family go to death because of constitutional psychopath inferior complex, when there is only one supreme issue that will truly protect all liberties, peace, and love.
And that is what? The enforcement of the Constitution. And when you're talking enforcement of the Constitution, remember, you're saying treaty and Constitution. Here's where Article 6 comes in. And this is why people need to study. Because when you're saying the word Constitution just by itself, in law you're saying treaty and Constitution. But you're supposed to know that. You're not to need to have to say that. Now go to the treaty book, give Article 6 of the Constitution.
I was going to say, you can have it.
Now, and this is back to, I want you to read. I want you to read. Yeah, Article 6. And it's back to the necessity of our people knowing their history, to know that they're part and parcel of the said government, and knowing why Drew Ali's telling them that. Because that is the equity contract. In other words, it keeps government in check. It doesn't give you rights, it secures rights that already exist. And if that concept is not understood, they keep looking for, you know, it to give them a right. It doesn't give the people right. It secures the rights that already exist. Go ahead. Article 6.
Article 6 of the Constitution reads, all debts contracted and engagements entered into before the adoption of this Constitution.
Slow down so that people can hear you. Before, because that must be understood.
Yes.
So that means it supersedes, doesn't it? Before means before this is adopted, this stands. Go ahead.
I repeat, Article 6 of the Constitution. All debts contracted and engagements entered into before the adoption of this Constitution shall be valid against the United States.
Against does not mean what? For.
Against.
That means they're obligated. It's making you clear that it's two parties, isn't it? How many people would read past that? Now continue.
This shall be valid against the United States under this Constitution as under the Confederation.
So you see more than one laws operating here, isn't it? Continue.
This Constitution and the laws of the United States, which shall be made in pursuance thereof, and all the treaties made or which shall be made under the authority of the United States, shall be the supreme law of the land. And the judges in every state shall be bound thereby. Anything in the Constitution or laws of any states to the contrary notwithstanding.
So now you see what Korryn was talking about? They were obligated. And what was they doing? Trying to shut her up. So what happens when a young sister like her, that got a good brain, starts catching on to this and taking a stand, and that influences all the youths cross that bridge, and they start looking, this ain't gibberish.
Right.
Do you see the momentum that they were putting in check, that they saw coming? And she already got a suit against them, and their bonds is going up.
She may have lost her life, but she lost it with purpose. She opened her lives.
And they were trying to assassinate her son too, because he could talk.
And she was teaching them.
Exactly, and they already had been threatening her. She knew they set a team out to assassinate her.
The one guy even said in the back of the video, he said, oh yeah, I seen your girl before. She's like, I know, y'all been watching me. And I lost it out against y'all.
You know, now you see why they got these so-called black shills out there muddying the water?
I've seen the tanks riding around.
Now you understand they're tied to the Southern Christian Poverty Law Center.
I have to look into that.
Yes.
All right, so finishing with
Continue.
Article 6, it says, the senators and representatives before mentioned, and the members of several state legislatures, and all executive and judicial officers, both of the United States and several states, shall be bound by oath or affirmation to support this Constitution, but no religious test shall ever be required as a qualification to any office or public trust under the United States.
So you can see that religious beliefs are dismissed, aren't they? Because it has nothing to do with it, does it?
Yes. I'm sorry, that just made me think of something.
Now you see how these so-called black leaders keep muddying this water? But people who don't know this, they get caught up in their own biases and don't know they're undermining themselves. Now you see how when you're talking constitution, you're talking treaty. Now you see why they won't teach the people about the treaty? Now you see why Obama went to Egypt and talked about the treaty, because we won't with our phony black selves. Now you understand why Michelle went to the Alhambra? Now pull up on your phone Obama with the Moorish flag, and then make the picture full screen and put it in front of the camera. Because he's showing you the real Moroccan flag. And she wears a red dress. Now, of course, the black leaders will call him phony too.
Oh, who phony?
No, I'm talking about the black shills, because that's their job.
They call Obama phone?
Yes, because he ain't doing nothing for the black people.
Really?
No,
He didn't sign
it's
the
the
rights
game.
to business people?
It's the game. It's the game.
He saved everybody's life.
Do you understand what I'm saying to you? It's the game.
She did have a pretty red dress on.
All right, now make a full screen, take it in front of the camera, please. Now, so the deal is now, you put that in context with George Washington's letter, and remember that Michelle went to the Alhambra, last stronghold of the Moors, and then consider these so-called black shills out here that keep on muddying the water and trying to twist this stuff up to get the people fighting each other. You get the point? Now, without this knowledge, our people would be caught up in their biases with their little club groups, wouldn't they? Now you see why they pay off these guys to keep these people fighting each other, to divert them from what's really going on here?
Mhm. Anything to keep the people appeased and not ask
No,
too
but
many
distracted.
questions. Distracted, agreed.
Why their estate is being what? Sold off while they're playing black games. Thinking that they're being Afrocentrically intelligent.
Watching reality.
Guided by black leader scholars that keep incidentally condemning conscious Moors as if it's a club. Do you see the frustration that's put the world, the position it puts the world in? I'm talking about other nation states.
Yes.
Any questions? Other questions? Nathaniel?
Would status correction or a declaration of one's nationality make it easier for felons to get a job? Or would finding a temple to join, I say all this because I'm in my right mind trying to become upstanding or whatever, and it's hard being accepted as an employee. I was wondering what you would do in such a situation.
All right, now here you have the obligation of the rights of indigenous people, and the CEO of the corporate operation, United States Corporation Company, signed the rights of indigenous people. These people are obligated to it. So what you do, you take the law and present it to them.
So
You don't have to argue. See, you don't argue, you don't start arguing as if it's your opinion. You show them their obligation.
Right.
This is why we try to make sure people get documents. Don't try to argue, meaning don't put yourself in a position where they think that you're trying to impose something. Show them their obligation. But if you don't know it's their obligation, you start trying to defend a right. You can't defend a right, you declare it. But you have to understand that. And your right already exists. They're obligated to what? To secure it. And you don't get in them Negro arguments. It's international law, because the United States Corporation Company is what? It is administered under international law. And that's why they need to know these things.
So yes, getting your paperwork is the start, but you have to also study law and know what you're talking about and know
Law and
how
history
to
go
take
together.
the rights of the indigenous people and defend yourself.
Now you understand why
Takes a lot
Obama
of
signed
study.
it, and also why it says civic groups and church groups are to distribute this information at all costs. That means we're doing a little lecture here, just a little interview type thing. But this information is supposed to be taught, broken down. The people are supposed to be made competent. And you know and I know that just like we were doing this video to help the people up a little bit, to get their understanding. And this should be standard everyday operation in our community. You already know it isn't. I know it isn't. It's not even arguable. But how many of our people know that these groups and these churches and civic groups are obligated by international law to dispense this information? And then you got these so-called black shills muddying the water and trying to act like Moors, conscious Moors, are making this up or creating trouble. And they're obligated to this too.
We are creating trouble for them, but we are making it up.
Yes, so we have to get past that BS and make the common people who they're controlling aware of this. Because every man, every woman, and every child must, by law, confess their own. But if they don't know their bloodline, logically they can't. And therefore read status in a state, read status in law book, his law book. And keep this in mind, this is also this would also go with that question, that first question. Go ahead, read status.
Status, standing, state or condition. The legal relation of individual to rest of community. The rights, duties, capacities, and incapacities which determine a person to a given class. A legal personal relationship, not temporary in its nature, nor terminable in the mere will of the parties, which third parties and the state are concerned. It also means the state.
Read that again.
It also means the state.
Read that again.
Status also means
estate.
estate.
Why?
Because it signifies the condition or circumstances in which one stands with regard to his property.
So you see, in society, status is everything, isn't it? So what if their status is dead under the black codes? Do they have right of estate?
No.
You see the problem? You see why the black leaders keep on muddying this argument and trying to act like we're making this up? And these people run around thinking they can claim property and UCCs and still be in the black status just because they process some papers. You see the danger of ignorance. And you're trying to get this information to these people, and they don't know that the corporate operatives of the United States Corporation is trying to exterminate them before they get to where they need to be. And then they're paying off their black leaders shills to muddy the water or to create fights amongst our people so that our people won't pay attention to what we're telling them, making them think that the conscious Moors are creating problems for them rather than liberating them.
Right.
Now you understand, once the people have these reference points, the people themselves will recognize that they're COINTELPRO-operatives. But until the people have this knowledge, they're caught in the gray area of their own biases that they've been trained already in, and protecting their little school of thought groups, not understanding that they're actually out of order. And they're looking for remedy. The remedy's always been here. They haven't been using it because they haven't been taught. And then their leader guys keep teaching them against Noble Drew Ali rather than showing them what he's really telling them. It's established in law. It already exists before they were even born. They were misclassified to steal their birthright. And they keep thinking it's a belief system, with the help of their black leader shills that they don't know are shills. And this is where we are. That's why we're doing this. And we'll do it again, as long as it's necessary.
As many times.
However, remember, this has been going on for 102 years right now. And so the world is getting kind of wondering what's up with us.
Right.
Now do you understand why China and Russia is now just dumping them bonds? This is aside from it affecting them, is because we're at the center of this thing and we ain't doing what we're supposed to do. And the rest of the nations, their economies are being crashed because we keep on BSing around. And we're in the heart of it. It's our estate. And the rest of the world is being damaged now because we're taking so long to claim the estate. And the Europeans have been using our estate to what? To fund a war machine to steal other nations and to upset other nations, and we still sitting around here to talk about a job that we ain't gonna damn get.
I'm going to ask questions that I already know the answer to for everyone out there who doesn't.
Yes.
So, I've heard a lot about declaring my nationality.
Yes.
How do I do that?
All right. Now, fundamentally, the Prophet Noble Drew Ali set up the Old Canine Temple, Moorish Holy Temple of Science, basically called Moorish Temple of Science, and then adopted in 1926 as its corporate name, the Moorish Science Temple of America, as a political platform for the people to correct their names and nationality. Remember, the Freedmen's Bureau, i.e. the Bureau of Refugees, Freedmen, and Abandoned Lands, was originally set up to do exactly the same thing. But if people don't know history, they're not aware of that. So the status must be corrected, because before the estate can be descended, The status must be corrected, which is why I had you read status.
Right.
And they must be in their proper person in order to be descendable. Read in propria persona in law. In, they're separate words, in propria persona.
In propria persona. In one's own person.
In one's own proper person.
In one's own proper person.
So that's almost redundant, isn't it? One's is possessive, isn't it?
Right.
Proper is kind of possessive, isn't it? With proper person.
Right.
In one's own. So one's
own.
Possessive, own possessive. You see?
Right.
In one's own proper person. In layman's term, that would be talking about being yourself, wouldn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Now continue to read that again, and then read it in context, and then analyze it. In propria persona means
In propria persona means
to be in one's own proper person.
In one's own proper person. It is a rule in pleading that pleas to the jurisdiction of the court must be pled in proper persona, because if pleaded by attorney, they admit the jurisdiction, as the attorney is an officer of the court.
Now stop right there.
Mm-hmm.
Now, so what happens if a person is talking about a state, talking about their rights and everything, and they're not in their proper person? The barristers have jurisdiction, don't they? And if you hire one, they have jurisdiction, don't they? So they have your birthright. So if you're not in your proper person, you have no right of a state, do you? How do you fix it? All over the world, it's called nationalization. Now see the status, see how they all go together? But if one's not aware of that and someone doesn't teach you, it never dawns on you that your status is dead when you're out in society, does it? Because I mean, it's just not in the conversation, is it?
The second you hire a lawyer, you're telling everyone else that
You
you're
just
not
gave him
competent,
your birthright.
that you're not competent in law, and that you
Exactly.
need someone else to speak for you. So all these people who are wondering how the system doesn't work for them and why black people never get,
Now
the
you're
second you
saying it.
hire a lawyer is the second that
gave
they
up your birthright.
understand that you don't know anything about the law. So of course they're going to drag you through the law
And rob you.
of everything that you have.
Exactly.
And hold you and kidnap you and hold you ransom.
And he's an officer of court. First, his obligations to the court, isn't it clear right there? Huh? And the court has jurisdiction already. You see the point? So if your status is dead, your estate is dead, isn't it?
Which goes back to the question, so how do people go about correcting their status?
Now there's where nationalization is. I took you through that to come right back to the basis. Meaning that if you understand what we just went through, the answer becomes obvious, but you got to tell people because they still don't get it. It's called nationalization. That's the official process of reclaiming your right of self so that you're capable of claiming your estate. And you can't make it up. You really got to be yourself.
Right.
So who are you? Now you understand George Washington's letter? It's the Moroccan Empire. What happens if you claim to be black, green, and purple? You've given up your claim of estate. See why we got to put all those component parts together to clean these people's minds so it becomes obvious? And we know, and it still ain't obvious to them. Yet it's obvious.
How do they nationalize?
Exactly. You nationalize by making a what? An official what's called declaratory statement in your proper person in organized body politics. This is why Girardi set up the Moorish Science Temple of America, so this can be done officially. Although it is a birthright, you're recognized in your connection with organized government, your national status. Therefore, you got to know what nationality is. You got to be organized, because no man's an island. The sovereignty of the people is recognized through your nation. Not that you're not recognized as a single unit. You are. But then you must also know the law, mustn't you?
Right.
Now you see why the organized body politic and why Drali registered the Moorish Science Temple as a civic group. As a civic organization, look up in the microfilm, look up in the records. Moorish Temple of Science was registered as a civic organization in 1925. It's documented. Now you see why the COINTELPRO operators keep telling people it's only a religious organization, to divert them from the fact that it's a civic organization. But until people look at the record, they will believe people just because they're saying things, because they get caught up in their biases of who they like, who they don't like. And remember, the people, the shills only get away with this because they know the people don't have
references.
exactly, and they're not being taught.
So you say that I need to make a declaration.
Yes, but you need to know the history, because you don't just make a declaration because somebody says so.
Right.
This is why we went through the scenarios. So once you understand and you recognize any organization that you're dealing with that's not having this at its foundation, you know it's a diversion. Because this is universal international law. This is an obligation.
It is an obligation, but it's very hard information for most people to find, especially people who are just now coming into knowledge.
Now let's say this again, in support of what you're saying right now. Noble Ali set up the Old Canaanite Temple and the Moorish Holy Temple of Science, which is known as the Moorish Temple of Science. And then it adopted in 1928 as its corporate name, the Moorish Science Temple of America. And he said, our press is the most powerful weapon in the hand of our group today. And he also said, what, if you don't do anything else to declare your nationality, you understand the status issue. And so you have a political platform, a civic platform that was set up for this to be done. However, the proper PR has not been done to make the people know this, has it?
No.
So now that's called the COINTELPRO infiltration stuff, isn't it? Isn't it? However, it's still, the responsibility still exists. It didn't go nowhere. And the people are still suffering for a lack of knowledge, aren't they? So as we're telling you, and you already know, but just act like you don't know, it is your job to tell someone else and family members, and you don't try to convince them. You give them documents so they can't get caught up in saying it's your belief. It's documented facts, and they're obligated. They don't know that they're obligated. They think it's a belief. As long as they think it's a belief, it's dismissible.
Yep.
But what we're showing is a lot of the injury is based on their dead status, that they don't know is dead status. And if you tell them without showing them documents, they think it's your opinion because the black leaders are saying that. They don't know that the black leaders are working for the European under COINTELPRO operations. Do you know, again, and like I said, the more and more you show this information, what you must do becomes obvious. What you recognize is that you need organized bodies to do it.
Right.
Now, and so now you understand why the Moorish Science temples have divine constitution and bylaws, and why the Grand Sheik and Assistant Grand Sheik are put in power to make law. See, we're talking the law. And then every temple must have a school. Now, we're not going to argue about whether they do or not. That will be self-evident. But when you see these component parts missing, I don't have to tell you what's happening done. Once you have the information, you have the information necessary to do what? Organize even yourself. When you have the component parts. Now you understand why the different temples in the different regions, why the Jurali set them up like that.
I just fear that most of this information isn't out there for a lot of people, or easy for them to find. Like, I found that Sister Standing on Law really helped me understand a lot of the things that were going on. So I printed out the entire course, and I've been studying and listening to myself. But there are a lot of people in the world out there who don't have access or don't know where exactly to find this information, or how to prepare themselves.
Let's keep this very simple. Let's keep this very simple. We're in the studio with Thano at the Houseoftunes, right?
Yep.
Right?
Love it.
You have the information, right?
Yes.
And just like it's printed off for you, it can be duplicated, can it?
Yes.
Now, collectively as a people, don't we have a lot of organizations, church groups, a whole bunch of organizations that we fund, donate to, and do a whole bunch of stuff to?
Yep.
That don't fix a damn thing? And actually keep costing fiat and don't fix, but they address some of these things verbally with no remedy. Here's remedy, right? So even if you're busy, and even though we all have burdens trying to survive under this debt slavery that the European has us under the United States corporation company operatives pretending to be government, we're not so distooled, meaning that we're not so lacking in tools that we cannot reach out and get some things done that can be transferred to others, can be given to them as a gift.
As in most of the binders with the case laws in them to my friends, and that knows I can.
Yes, exactly. And they can do and should do the same thing, meaning that, and it's back to the point that I'm not knocking anyone. Our people will spend, you know, a nice little hunk of change for knockoff Gucci bags.
Yes.
Knockoff Gucci shoes and stuff like that, and somebody else's hair and stuff like that, and would not spend 5 notes to have that printed up.
It was funny because someone mentioned that to me today. They said, oh, you should sell that information. I need that information in my car. I got pulled over a couple weeks ago. And I said, it's funny because if I was to sell it for the $88 that a normal speeding ticket would be, or $136 that a normal speeding ticket
You'd
would
be
be,
upset.
people wouldn't buy it.
Exactly.
I could save them on 10 to 15
Exactly.
$88 to $100 speeding tickets.
Exactly.
And they still
And what?
won't
It's
buy it.
established already. It's the established law, and most of them will sit around talking about having black meetings, trying to figure out what to do to deal with this racism. You see where the problem is, and that's where they're directed. And you know by now it's not the argument, it's birthright.
Right.
And so it's easy to correct it, isn't it? Just share the information. Now, the people appear not to want it. So Obama he put to an expose that the American Constitution comes from Muslim law, so they don't have to figure. Now he's the highest officer in the administration of this estate, and if they don't accept what we've been telling them, now he's telling them. Now the Pope is telling them. Now pull up on your phone Pope Francis' letter to Obama. I know you're already familiar with it, right? Civil orders. And take this in consideration when the people are distracted by their so-called important black leader guys in the communities.
While she looking that up, another question. After the name correction, what would be the correct way to go about starting your own business?
Estate. Put their stuff in the state. You being your proper person, at least then you can start own property. This is why the estate. Now, the question is valid. However, this is the point. Once one understands these principles, the question is already answered. It's almost like if you're telling somebody 2 and 2 is 4 and they agree to 2 and 2 is 4, then they ask you, what about if you get 3 and 3? Which means they don't understand the concept yet. And it's fine, but that's why we must continue to what? Purge. Because the concept is what we're getting across. It means it's self-evident. Do you understand? But the fact that we got to continue to keep on giving examples is not wrong, because some people just don't get it. But it should be self-evident. Now, and until it's self-evident, now look at this, what happens. What happens when our people don't appear to be able to comprehend self-evident? What do the administrators tell them to do? Shut up and go get a lawyer. Since you can't present yourself, you apparently have the mentality of a child or minor and must be represented or represented by another man. Then they put a barrister on them, and the barrister robs them. It's called barratry. And this is where we have to start taking responsibility to start thinking. Meaning, after you've been shown this evidence, most of this stuff becomes obvious. That's not a rejection, mind you, but that is an urgence and a declaratory encouragement to take responsibility to think, because some of these questions should be answered already. It's not being rejected, but you need to think because you've been given the answer. Because until it becomes your own, meaning if it's mine and we got to keep answering these questions in the studio, not that we shouldn't answer it. When you get in the ring, when you get on the ring of life, they'll punch you in your head. They ain't gonna be drawing new punches, which is why we're giving this information. And the reason why, another thing that must be looked at, we have a limited time when we're doing this, these little lectures or interviews. And so we're giving you references and documents so you can see for yourself. And it becomes absolutely obvious. Read some of this material using the references that we've given you, say like House Joint Resolution 192, Post Letter to Obama, coup d'etat, the Congress adjourning sine die, May the 10th of 61, the Act of Congress 1871, and make up your own questions and then answer them. And this stuff, it becomes so obvious where we're wanting that you will recognize that your answers, your questions have actually been answered over and over again tonight on multiple levels.
And the last time you was here, you said you wanted to go over non-pro-tunc.
Non-pro-tunc, that means now for them. And I don't, do you have that document?
Which is?
Where from the city chambers of Philadelphia, where they did the non-pro-tunc.
No, I had the inactivity.
I do apologize, because I don't have that with me.
Declarations of rights.
But I have that in, you don't have the non-pro-tunc, because we have it in our book. You know the book that we give everybody with the Great Seal papers. I'll make sure you get the Great Seal papers too.
Okay.
Yeah. Now the non-pro-tunc is where from the city chambers of Philadelphia, because they took the birth right here, it was a call, a public call, a public notice that was given out, and this was after they did the MOVE bombing, and they did a public notice for these people. That's a legal term for now, for then. That means for now, for then, for these people, all people, blacks, colored, Negroes, and or niggers, free, nationality, name, definitely Moorish American. In other words, they're telling the people to declare their nationality. That's what the non-pro-tunc document is. Came from City Hall chambers. Now, it's almost like, even though we know that it's limited comparatively, there's so much documentation that hasn't been burned or suppressed that an imbecile can recognize that they're on call to declare their nationality. This includes the rights of indigenous people that Obama just signed recently. That includes Treaty Enforcement 93 under the Clinton administration. That includes Declaration Universal Declaration of Human Rights 1948. That includes Rights of a Child 1959. I mean, it's like redundant. It's absolutely redundant. And one piece of information as we give you would lead you to these other documents, and of course this stuff we've been given to people over years. So it's accumulated information that almost everybody has that's been dealing with us. And they're distracted by these black leader shills that Southern Christian law firm guys keep on sending out here and paying their fees to keep on attacking the Moors and muddying the water. And the people keep following after them instead of studying the stuff that we're showing them, thinking that it's a belief. Do you understand? And we're talking documents, we're not talking about opinions. And they got these black guys creating all these debate videos arguing issues that aren't even arguable. And they keep They follow them with precision like they do soap operas. And they won't, you know, for some strange reason, it's almost like books are considered Negro taboo. As a matter of fact, they'll read 2 lines and start filling the rest of them with their beliefs. Meanwhile, they don't know that European John kill them off.
You sure?
Well, did he show them? And then they're trying to what? Stop people who have the knowledge from teaching them.
Right.
Because it will absolutely cause institutions to collapse because they're built on fraud.
They don't want the children of Korryn.
Tell me about it.
They don't want the next generation of people.
But they love the children, right? Yeah. Right.
Yes. So speaking of the women and children, those are my only real questions. My only real concern, the mom's son. So for these women who are having children, we talked about birth certificates versus live record of birth, and even past that, declaring your nationality. I've spoken with you about this before, and I remember you mentioning something about the Attorney General. Who do we put on
The
those?
Attorney
Who are we
General
telling
is the comptroller, C-O-M-P, of alien properties. Now this goes with the role of the exchequer. Exchequer. Now the exchequer is the collector for the resources, revenues, and like the treasury for the Pope to Rome and the Jesuit order. He would be equal in past tense to Thomas de Torquemada. And so the organizational equal to that now would be the Internal Revenue Service. And for every corporate state of jurisdiction, you know, these are really our estates in corporate entity.
Right.
The Attorney General would be controlling the right of property. That's the transfer house.
So if I was to have a child, how would I go about nationalizing my child?
The same way you would in the temple. And now, this is key. See, because I don't want anybody to get confused. Because of the unfortunate situation we have with the infiltration in the 30s, just before the prophet was assassinated, etc. These things should have been taught, and they have not been. By necessity, some other Moors with more genius citizens, as you might call them, set up other organizations to get these things carried out and register them. That was done by C.M. Bey and others who were more active. And people like myself will set up the round table, etc., different organizations, and set up protocols for these things to be done that the traders were blocking.
Right.
But because people get caught up in favoritisms, we start showing them laws so they wouldn't think we're trying to compete.
Right.
We're trying to liberate them. And so the record of live birth distinguished from a certificate. That's why they have to learn law, because a certificate is a bond. It's essentially an instrument of sale. So they got to know language. And you see where all these component parts come in? And then it must actually be themselves. So it must be a member of the Moorish nation. Can't make up some Blackadonia stuff and then put a red and green and black flag and then thinking that that stands in law in Pan-Africa, if you get the whole point. Because the obligation exists before you were born. You must come back on the platform. You have the rights of a state if you don't come back on the platform. You can't make up something. But they don't know that because they've been told other than that. See, in other words, like this, you can't make up a mom and then say that you have a right to a state. You must acknowledge the original mother. Do you understand? And our people got caught up in this Ebonics thing that they can make up Pan-African nation stuff and just make stuff up and then have claim of right to the estate. But they don't know law, and so they don't know that. You know what I mean? And their black leaders keep on convincing them they can make stuff up and just use a green and black flag or make anything that looks Afrocentric and have standing, and it doesn't. And of course, if you tell them that, they think that you're attacking their black organization when you're actually trying to tell them to respect the law, to respect your honor of your mothers and fathers. It already exists. If you deny it, you've denied your estate. But again, this is why it's important for people to know the history, because they don't know they have an estate.
Right.
And you notice how we're going in circles?
Yes.
And so
Yes.
it goes back to, if you, and this is where Drawley said, if you can't convince them and show them that they're not Negro, black, and colored, there's no need to tell them anything else.
Anymore. Right.
And what is it, the problem that we have in certain situations is not a problem, it's the dynamics of communication. It's getting our people to respect the foundation and stop trying to get the prize before acknowledging the foundation, because the foundation must be there before the building is erected. These are fundamental rules. And this is, again, also, even though we have difficulty, that by protocols, even when you're dealing with peripheral organization or people dealing on advanced degrees, we send them to the Moorish Science Temple of America to get their foundation. Hopefully, that the Grand Sheiks and Sheikas in the Moorish Science Temple will reinstitute their obligations to teach constitutional principles and bring the people back in the constitutional fold of government. But unfortunately, we know that doesn't always happen. And so we have to get the people to a certain level of consciousness where they themselves will start taking that responsibility upon themselves, but not abandon the institution, which of course creates problems too. So it's also admitting the damage and the flaws, but giving people enough knowledge where they can use their knowledge to start fixing this thing. You're out just for a minute, so I'm really talking about fundamental infiltration. And it gets uncomfortable because people, you know, don't want to talk about the great sellout. You know?
Somebody had a question that was kind of similar to what it was saying. This is confusing on the Moorish Temple of America site.
I know.
It says that Moors are supposed to have driver's license, and how people began refusing simply because of the Euro-American sovereign citizens movement. So are there different levels to it?
Yes. Now, answer to that, go ahead, tell them what you read.
This is confusing on the Moorish Temple.
It is confusing, but it's not. It is, but it isn't. Do you see what I'm saying? Why I had you read the documents?
Yes.
Now read the question again, because you went out just for a minute. And remember, you went over the Supreme Court?
Yes.
Now, this is it. I want you to read the divine warning by the prophet for the nations. Do you have that available? As a matter of fact, I'm going to read it and then I will answer your question.
To help a lot of people, I also found rbbaypublications.com to be a very helpful website for everything that I needed, all the questions. That's also where you find the Sister Standing on Law classes that I was referring to, and all of the information I got about the Supreme Court case laws as far as traveling and the things that are going on amongst our people right now.
Now, were they listening from the beginning when we went over the different United States and the theft of the birthright? Now, the conversion of the right into a crime and a privilege was done with that conversions of the United States. Now, I'm going to read the divine warning by the prophet for the nations. Please don't hesitate to interject and to look at what's obvious here, all right? This is from your literature book that you will get in the Moorish Science Temple of America or Moorish Holy Temple of Science, also in the Order of the Great Seal as a requirement of study and analysis. A divine warning by the prophet for the nations. The citizens of all free national governments, according to their national constitution, are all of one family bearing one free national name. Those who fail to recognize the free national name of their constitutional government are classed as undesirables and are subject to all inferior names and abuses and mistreatments that the citizens care to bestow upon them. And it is a sin for any group of people to violate the national constitutional laws of a free national government and cling to the names and the principles that delude to slavery. I, the prophet, was prepared by the great God Allah to warn my people to repent from their sinful ways and to go back to the state of mind of their forefathers, divine and national principles, that they will be law-abiders and receive their divine rights as citizens according to the free national constitution that was prepared for all free national beings. They are to claim their own free national name and religion, and there is but one issue for them to be recognized by this government and of the earth, and it comes only through the connection to the Moorish divine and national movement, which is incorporated in this government and recognized by all other nations of the world. And through it, they and their children can receive their divine rights unmolested by the other citizens, that they can cast a free national ballot, at the polls under the free national constitution of the state's government, and not under a granted privilege as has been the existing condition for many generations. You who doubt whether I, the prophet, and my principles are right for the redemption of my people, go to those who know law in the city hall and among the officials of your government, and ask them in an intelligent tone, and they will be glad to render you a favorable reply, for they are glad to see me bring you out of darkness into light. Money doesn't make a man. It is free national standards and power that makes a man and a nation. The wealth of all national governments, gold and silver and commerce, belong to the citizens alone. And without your national citizenship by name and principles, you have no true wealth. And I'm hereby calling on all true citizens that stand for a national free constitution, a free national government, and the enforcement of the Constitution, to help me in my great missionary work, because I need all support from all true American citizens of the United States of America. Help me to save my people who have fallen from the constitutional laws of government. I'm depending on your support to get them back to the constitutional fold again, that they will learn to love instead of hate, and will live according to love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, supporting our free national constitution for the United States of America. I love my people, and I desire for their unity and mind back to their own national and divine standard, because day by day they have been violating the national and constitutional laws of their government by claiming names and principles that are unconstitutional. And if Italians, Greeks, English, Chinese, Japanese, Turks, and Arabians are forced to proclaim their free national constitution, national name and religion before the constitutional government of the United States of America, it is no more than right that the law should be enforced upon all other American citizens alike. In all other governments, when a man is born and raised there and asks for his national descent name, and if he fails to give it, he is misused, imprisoned, or exiled. Any group of people that fail to answer up to the constitutional standards of law by name and principles. Because to be a citizen of any government, you must claim your national descent name, because they place their trust upon issues and names formed by their forefathers. The word Negro alludes to the Latin language to the word nigger, the same as the word colored alludes to anything that is painted, varnished, and dyed. And every nation must bear a national descent name of their forefathers, because honoring thy fathers and thy mothers, your days will be lengthened upon the earth. And these names have never been recognized by any true American citizen of this day. Through your free national name, you are known and recognized by all nations of the earth that are recognized by said national government in which they live. The 14th and 15th Amendments brought the North and the South in unit, placing the Southerners, who were at that time without power, with the constitutional body of power. And at that time, 1865, the free national constitution law that was in force since 1774 declared all men equal and free. And if all men are declared by the free national constitution to be free and equal, and since that constitution has never been changed, there is no need for the application of the 14th and 15th Amendment for the salvation of my people and citizens. So there isn't but one supreme issue for my people to use to redeem that which was lost. And that is through the above statements. Then the lion and the lamb can lie down together in yonder hills, and neither will be harmed, because love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice will be reigning in this land. In those days, the United States will be one of the greatest civilized and prosperous governments of the world. But if the above principles are not carried out by the citizens and my people in this government, the worst is yet to come, because the great God of the universe is not pleased with the works that are being performed in North America by my people, and this great sin must be removed from the land to save it from enormous earthquakes, diseases, etc. And I, the prophet, do hereby believe that the administration of the government, being more wisely prepared by more genius citizens that believe in their free national constitution and laws, and through the help of such classes of citizens, I, the prophet, truly believe that my people will find the true and divine way of their forefathers and learn to stop serving carnal customs that and merely ideas of man that have never done them any good, but have always harmed them. So I, the prophet, am hereby calling aloud with a divine plea to all true American citizens to help me to remove this great sin which has been committed and is being practiced by my people in the United States of America, because they know that it is not the true and divine way, and without understanding they have fallen from the true light into utter darkness of sin, and there is not a nation on earth today that will recognize them socially, religiously, politically, or economically, etc. In their present condition of their endeavorment in which they themselves try to force upon a civilized world, they will not refrain from their sinful ways of action, and their deeds have brought Jim Crowism, segregation, and everything that brings harm to human beings on earth. They fought the Southerner for all these great misuses, but I have traveled to the South, in the South, and have examined conditions there, and it is the works of my people continuously practicing those things which bring dishonor, disgrace, and disrespect to any nation that lives the life. And I am hereby calling on all true American citizens for moral support and finance to help me in my great missionary work to bring my people out of darkness into marvelous light. And as you know, we just went over the constitutional laws set by the Supreme Court, the highest court in the land, obligated to all the people, and the sister read them earlier. Did you hear them? That's enforcing the Constitution. Now you make up your own decision who's lying.
I had a couple more questions. One was saying, why are we using the titles Bay and Ill?
To the north is predominantly Bay and Eels, and this is the territory that they've been operating the Unum Sanctum from, Central Northwest America, or Mexico, even though the empire is from the coast of Africa on that side, which is actually South Asia, and across the Atlantis, even to North, Central, South America, including Mexico. It is from North America, the heartland of the Moroccan Empire, that they've been executing their war machine upon the rest of the world. Does it not become obvious?
If a person calling themselves a judge unlawfully enters a plea on another person's behalf in the place that they call traffic court, along with the fact that a judge's willful violation of the Fifth Amendment due process, what would you suggest a person do next? An affidavit of fact? Thank you, Amir Grace Seal, for taking the time to answer some questions, and I can never thank you enough for helping me help myself to take the chains off.
And this is again, when she was reading the Supreme Court cases it is obvious that that's the enforcing of the Constitution, and the things that have been diluting the slavery has been those things that have been in opposition to it. And again, it becomes obvious. And this is why we give people documents, because these questions are logical, but when this information is exposed to the people, it becomes obvious to COINTELPRO operations that has damaged the movement.
As far back as the 1920s, when he began as FBI director, Hoover had gone after persons like Marcus Garvey. In the summer of 1978, I interviewed a man who worked as an informer for the FBI during the 1960s. His name is Dothard Perry, also known as Ed Riggs, also known as Bill Perry, also known as Othello. How were you paid?
The pay was always in cash. Cash, and you would sign a card. It would go like this. A rendezvous or a drop-off point would be picked out either by yourself or the agent. You would meet the agent there. Usually it would be in a vehicle. You get in the vehicle, he would hand you the money. He would tell you first to count the money. He would tell you the amount while you counted it. If the amount was there, he would then bring out a card. On that card would be for the week of such and such. In other words, the week was dated. So-and-so has been paid the amount of. Then you would sign the card, and then the agent would sign the card. The reason for this is that if all of a sudden the IRS became very interested about where you were getting all this extra money from, you could always tell them to go back to the Bureau, and the Bureau would have your cards on file.
I see. Were there such things as bonuses?
Oh, yes.
What were they paid for?
Bonuses were paid for, suppose while you were meeting with, or you were at a meeting with Bobby Seals, Chulai of the Red Army happened to come to the meeting too, which is something which would be a new development. That's bonus time.
In other words, a hot piece of information.
Hot piece, very hot piece. A lot of information that I gave out was the undoing of certain groups or certain people.
Why have you decided to talk to me?
For the simple reason, I think this information should be getting out, should be put out to the public. I think not only black people, but everyone should become aware of what your so-called law enforcement agencies do to so-called enforce the law. Because between you, myself, and the audience, I've seen more felons in law enforcement than I have in prison. To understand the people, you have to understand the culture. To infiltrate, you have to understand. You had a lot of so-called white liberals that were infiltrating the so-called black groups using the information that they had gathered from the studies of blacks.
You mean just to understand the behavior pattern of our people?
Oh yeah, I can, Will Heaton could name out some jams of Miles Davis that I hadn't even heard of. He could name off some books that I hadn't even read pertaining to black culture.
Do you ever see agents actually studying the music of...
Yes. Yes, I've seen them going over even video portion of cultural events. One lone assassin theory. The Bureau and other intelligence agencies are very good at conspiracies. They are very good at setting people up to be killed. They are very good at making innuendos so the person will be killed.
City police don't know about, because they have policemen in there. They don't let black people form anything without some policemen in there. And while I was in the black Muslim movement, over the black Muslim movement, many of the police who were sent to infiltrate us, they're black, would tell me, say, look, I'm a cop, but I have to come They would tell me. I knew the Muslim movement was full of police. So don't you think anything is going down that they don't know about? The only thing that goes down is what they want to go down. And what they don't want to go down, they don't let it go down.
Would you say to American citizens that this situation of surveillance and infiltration continues to this day?
Oh, yes.
On the dimension that you experienced?
Probably much larger by now.
Larger?
Oh, yeah. Let me put it to you like this. Each year, everything gradually escalated up more and more. So I figure when I left, it didn't stop escalating. As they say, one monkey does not stop anybody's show.
On all the rest of us.
Hey, what's happening?
Tell your neighbor, I don't want you to cuss, I just want you to say, raise up 15. That's the word.
Yes, that's right, buddy.
15
that's right.
and a union.
That's right, Phil. Fed.
Brothers and sisters,
Feds.
I'm glad to be with you in Richmond today.
Feds.
We'll fillet those.
And I'm honored to join you at this national convention.
Here's the guy right here. Hey, Glenn, that's the guy that ran over your foot that's hiding his face. Hey, that's the narc right there. We got the feds right here. Feds.
First, you don't want
feds. There's Phil Willeto, the Fed. Yep. There's Phil Willeto pushing the Jews race war psyop here.
It's getting heavy here.
Jew race war psyop. Fed. Commie Fed right there. Yeah, I got that, Phil. You're a commie Fed. You're a Fed. Zionist Fed.
And of course, when the people see the hypocrisy or the contradiction, it's only confusing when they don't know the law. You see the point? And so when the prophet said, go back to that state of mind of your ancient mothers and fathers, and he said, since that constitution has never been changed, you understand the coup d'etat. When they modified it and changed it into a corporation, that's when they converted your rights into a crime and started what? Selling you licenses for rights. You see the point? So those are principles that are practiced that delude the slavery, aren't they? Now you understand what the big sellout is? Meaning that we're not knocking anyone, we're telling, which if you read the prophet's literature and enforce the Constitution, it becomes obvious who is who. And Nathaniel, remember when we was talking on the way up here and we were talking about maxims and bringing back people back to points? These questions, last couple questions are very pertinent and very important because they prove the point. Remember when I was reading the Supreme Court law, and then we just read the divine warning by the prophet? Isn't in the divine warning by the prophet for the nations clearly showing the people that the enforcement of the Constitution is at the heart of the Moorish movement? Isn't that very clear? He even says, help me in my great missionary work to bring my people back into the constitutional fold of government, enforcing the Constitution for the United States of America, our Constitution. Is that not the highest level of civics? It absolutely is. But yet, you see a lot of people in and out of the Moorish movement are claiming that this movement has nothing to do with civics. Do you see how contradictory that is? And stare decisis, which is Supreme Court cases, you can see multiple levels where the Supreme Court came on the side of the people and tell you that the right of travel cannot be licensed. So what happens when somebody tells you something that deludes the slavery and tells you that a right can be licensed by the Bar Association foreigners? Which is exactly opposite of what Noble Drew Ali is saying. So do I need to answer that, or do people need to pay attention to what's obvious? And see, because people like to take sides, they like to say, well, Taji guy said this, and the Grand Sheik or the Sheikhs has said that. Why don't they deal with what the Prophet said and what the Supreme Court said? And it becomes obvious as who's enforcing the law and who's not. And again, and I repeat this, you see the importance of maxims and the importance of Constitution. That's your measuring point. You don't get caught in personalities. You don't get caught in titles. You measure everybody by constitutional principles. Everybody. Then you don't get tricked. Now, see, this is what the implication is. The assumption is because someone in the temple says that it appears to have authority, right? Because they're using the power of the seat. But upon examination, they're violating the Constitution. You see the problem? But what it really indicates is that their fears or their lack of enforcing the law, they're actually trying to violate or justify the breaking of the law and the stealing of the people's birthright because they haven't enforced the law. But they're counting on the fact that people don't know the law, so they figure they got the power of the seat so they can tell the people what they want to tell them because they don't want to do what? Rock the boat? Now, some people will try to make it personal, but that isn't personal. That's the fact. And this is the danger of people not studying, because they allow people to use authority colorably and don't know when it's happening. So the confusion is only exists if people don't know the law. Meaning that you know how it says, I went to the store to get a loaf of bread with a 10-note bill, and I got 2-cent change. My friend went to the store to get a loaf of bread with a 10-note bill, and he got $7.50 back. I'm confused. No, what you're saying is that you can't count. If loaf of bread is $2.50, you should know that it's not debatable. It's not determined what suit the guy at the cashier has, what complexion he is or she is, what belief they have. The rule is mathematics. Likewise, when you're dealing with social orders, the rules, the fundamental, what you call the foundation, rule of land, what do they say? What's the supreme law of the land? What's the supreme law of the land?
Supreme Court, the Constitution.
All right. So what did Raleigh tell us to do? To enforce what? What did he tell us to enforce? The Constitution. So what does the Supreme Court say? The constitutional secured right that the people have a right to travel on the roads. With or without a license, without a plate, and no license. Because it's a right, it's not a privilege, and the police cannot do what? Convert rights into a crime. Haven't they been doing that? So anybody that supports that criminality is doing what? Practicing those things that delude to slavery. And they can only get away with it because they're counting on the fact that the people don't have this information. You see why we're here at the Houseoftunes giving you documents, because the people get caught in what they believe or what club members say because they happen to have titles and they've been getting away with this stuff. Is it personal or is it the law? Is it club or is it national? You see where the problem is? And then people try to do what? Pit us against each other when it's not necessary. They need to enforce the Constitution. And if they were enforcing the Constitution, they'd be here with us saying the same thing. But instead, they're taking an opposite position to protect clubism that they've created on their own, and then sitting in the temples and using the authority of that seat, violating the very Constitution they're supposed to be enforcing, and then the people see it and get confused. But they shouldn't be confused, they should see who's enforcing the Constitution and who's not enforcing the Constitution. Now, is the Supreme Court backing us up, or is they backing up them grand chiefs? Are they making stare decisis up, or are they ruling on constitutional cases?
Constitutional cases.
There you go. See how, and I'm saying it's not dismissing, but I'm just saying if people would pay attention to the information, the questions are really already answered. But the confusion really is this. This is really what the confusion is the discomfort that we all find when we have to admit that we have traitors amongst us, some of whom we're giving credibility. and some of who are pulling rank because they hold titles, but they're counting on the ignorance of the people. And so rather than be the hypocrite, they actually attack those who actually what? Doing the job and enforcing the Constitution and acting like that person is wrong. You see the problem? When the real deal is that they've capitulated and have not been enforcing law, which is why are people getting injured today? Because they didn't enforce the Constitution. Didn't you always say, if you don't carry the law, what's going to happen? It was going to go negative, didn't it? Isn't it negative? What's happening to our people all over the place? They're getting shot for not having a license. They're actually doing what? Waging war to people unconstitutionally. And then who's telling these people that they're supposed to have these instruments, these bottomry instruments that take their birthright? People who claim to be Grand Sheiks? And what would they do? Condemning me for telling the truth? You see the problem that we have, Nathaniel? I'm not attacking them, I'm enforcing the law, but they would treat it as if I'm attacking them. You see the problem? But Taji guy is the rebel, right? This is why it is important to go to the documents. But anyway, we're going to do this again, Nathaniel. And I want to thank you all for sharing this time with us at the House of Tunes, and with Nathaniel taking his time to do this interview. And we're all tired. We've been working, you know, and but we need to get this work done. And this is back to also what Prophet Nobudrali has said, and he said it continuously. If I could get you all thinking again, you'd save yourselves. Which means this stuff is common sense. Please, you all, please restore your libraries and start reading again. Stop being lazy. Stop thinking that knowledge is anti-God and anti-religion. Please. Anyway, let's close out.
Peace.
Peace.